When Eli Walker pulled a bleeding woman from the jaws of a crocodile-infested swamp at dawn, he thought he was saving just another lost tourist. He had no idea she was Isabella Reyes, the missing CEO whose plane crash had made international headlines. And he certainly didn't know that hiding her in his ramshackle cabin would put his 8-year-old daughter Luna in the crosshairs of corrupt millionaires willing to kill to keep their secrets buried. This is their story. Stay until the end and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The Everglades before sunrise belonged to the predators. Eli Walker knew this the way other men knew the streets of their neighborhoods. Intimately, instinctively, with the kind of wisdom that kept you breathing when everything around you wanted you dead. He moved through the dark water in his flat-bottomed skiff, the electric trolling motor barely whispering against the current. The beam of his headlamp cut through the pre-dawn mist like a blade, illuminating patches of sawgrass and the occasional glowing pair of eyes that watched from the shallows. He wasn't hunting gators this morning. Not exactly. The Wildlife Rehabilitation Center 30 miles north had called him about a 14-footer that had been hanging around a boat launch, getting too comfortable with people. Eli was one of 3 licensed trappers they trusted to relocate problem animals without killing them. The pay was shit, but it kept food on the table and let him work his own hours, which meant he could be home when Luna got off the school bus. Being a single dad to an 8-year-old meant you made sacrifices. Eli had made plenty. The water here was the color of strong tea, stained by tannins from the cypress trees that rose like ancient sentinels from the swamp. Spanish moss hung from their branches in ghostly curtains. Somewhere in the darkness, a great blue heron announced the coming dawn with a harsh, prehistoric cry. Eli adjusted the rifle secured across his lap, a Remington 870 loaded with beanbag rounds. He'd only ever had to fire it twice in 5 years, and both times it had been enough to convince an aggressive gator that easier meals existed elsewhere. The GPS on his phone showed he was close to the coordinates the center had given him. He killed the motor and let the skiff drift, listening. The swamp was never truly silent. There was always the symphony of frogs, the rustle of something moving through the underbrush, the distant splash of a fish breaking the surface. Eli had learned to hear the spaces between these sounds, the absences that told you when something was wrong. That's when he heard it. A sound that didn't belong. A wet, labored breathing. Human. Eli's hand went to the rifle, but he didn't lift it. Not yet. His heart rate kicked up, the old soldier's instinct, the one that had kept him alive in Kandahar and Helmand province, the one that had gotten sharper rather than duller in the 7 years since he'd left the Marines. Hello? His voice carried across the water, not loud but clear. Anyone out there? The breathing hitched. Then, so quiet he almost missed it. Help! Eli grabbed the spotlight mounted to his gunnel and swept it across the water. For a moment he saw nothing but the endless maze of sawgrass and mangrove roots. Then the beam caught something that made his breath stop. A hand. Pale, slender, fingers clutching weakly at a cypress knee jutting from the water. Jesus Christ! Eli fired up the motor and guided the skiff forward carefully, his eyes scanning for the telltale ridges of alligator backs in the water. This was feeding time, dawn and dusk, when the gators were most active, most aggressive. Whatever poor bastard was out here had picked the worst possible time to need rescue. As he drew closer, the spotlight revealed more. A woman, half submerged in the black water, her other arm hooked around the cypress root like it was the only thing between her and drowning. Her face was turned away, dark hair plastered to her skull, but he could see blood. A lot of it. It stained the water around her, created spreading tendrils of crimson in the current. Blood in the water. In a swamp full of prehistoric predators with a bite force of nearly 3,000 pounds per square inch, Eli didn't let himself think. Thinking got you killed. He moved on instinct, the way they'd trained him, the way he'd learned in the shit when seconds meant the difference between going home and going home in a box. He brought the skiff alongside the cypress, killed the motor, and reached for the woman. "I've got you," he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline dumping into his system. "I need you to let go of the tree. Can you do that?" She turned her face toward him, and even in the harsh glare of the spotlight, Eli could see she was beautiful, Sharp cheekbones, full lips, skin that probably saw more spa treatments than sunlight. Mid-30s, maybe. Her eyes were dark, unfocused, but aware enough to find his face. "Crocodile," she whispered. Her accent was educated, refined, not local, not even close. It came out of nowhere. "American alligator," Eli corrected automatically, then cursed himself. "Priorities, Walker." "Doesn't matter. Let go. I've got you." Her fingers uncurled slowly from the cypress knee. The moment she released, she started to sink. Eli lunged forward, hooking his hands under her armpits, and hauled her toward the skiff. She weighed less than he'd expected. Couldn't have been more than 120, soaking wet. Literally. That's when he saw her shirt. What was left of it. It had been white silk once. Expensive. The kind of thing you'd wear to a boardroom, not a swamp. Now it was shredded, torn open from collar to hem, revealing a black lace bra and angry red scratches across her ribs. Her pants, tailored gray slacks that probably cost more than Eli's mortgage payment, were in similar condition. And her shoes. Christ. She was wearing heels, honest-to-God designer heels with red soles. Louboutins. Eli only knew that because his ex-wife had drooled over them in magazines before she'd decided that being married to a broke veteran in the Florida wilderness wasn't the life she'd signed up for. He got the woman into the skiff, laying her across the center bench. She was shivering despite the muggy warmth of the swamp morning. Shock, probably. And blood loss. Now that he had her in better light, he could see the damage. Deep puncture wounds in her left shoulder, 4 of them, perfectly spaced. Gator bite. Probably a smaller one, 8, maybe 9 feet. Or she wouldn't have any shoulder left. The bleeding was steady but not arterial. That was good. That was something. "What's your name?" Eli grabbed the first aid kit from under his seat and started pulling out gauze. "Stay with me. What's your name?" "Isabella." Her eyes rolled, struggled to focus. "Isabella Reyes." The name tickled something in his memory, but Eli pushed it aside. He pressed gauze against her shoulder, and she gasped, her back arching. "I know it hurts, I know, but I need to stop the bleeding. Can you hold this?" "Press down hard." She tried. Her hand came up, shaking, and pressed weakly against the gauze. Not enough pressure, but it would have to do. Eli secured it with medical tape, wrapping it around her shoulder and under her arm. Quick, efficient. He'd done this before, in worse circumstances, with fewer supplies. "Okay." He sat back, assessing her. The shoulder was the worst of it, but there were other injuries, cuts on her face, probably from branches, bruises forming on her arms. Her right ankle was swollen, twice its normal size. "I need to get you to a hospital. There's one in Everglades City, about 40 minutes from here." "No." The word came out sharp, desperate. Isabella tried to sit up, failed, fell back against the bench. "No hospitals, no police." Eli stared at her. "Ma'am, you've been attacked by an alligator. You need proper medical attention." "Please." She grabbed his wrist with surprising strength, her dark eyes suddenly laser-focused on his face. "Please, just somewhere safe. Somewhere they won't find me." "They?" Eli felt the old warning bells start ringing in his head. This was how you got into trouble. This was how you ended up dead or in prison or both. "Who's they?" "I can't." She closed her eyes and tears leaked from the corners. "I can't tell you. You'll think I'm crazy." "Lady, you're bleeding in my boat at 5 in the morning wearing a $1,000 outfit. That ship has sailed." A sound escaped her that might have been a laugh or a sob. 2,000. The blouse was 2,000. Despite everything, Eli felt his mouth twitch. "Well, you're going to need a new one. Listen." He made his voice gentle, the way he did when Luna woke up from nightmares about her mom leaving. "I don't know what you're running from, and maybe it's none of my business, but you're hurt. You need a doctor, yes, but not a hospital, not officially." Isabella opened her eyes again. "Is there anyone you know? Someone who can help without asking questions?" Eli thought about Marcus Chen, the retired Army medic who ran a charter fishing business out of Chokoloskee. Marcus owed him a favor from when Eli had pulled his drunk ass out of a bar fight last year. Marcus had seen enough combat medicine to handle this, probably. And Marcus, like Eli, understood that sometimes people needed help that didn't come with paperwork. Maybe, Eli said slowly, but I want answers, real ones, starting with why you're out here dressed like you're headed to Wall Street. Isabella's hand was still on his wrist. She squeezed once, then released. Get me somewhere safe. Then I'll tell you everything. It was a bad idea. Eli knew it was a bad idea. Every instinct he'd honed in 10 years of military service and 7 years of surviving in the Everglades told him to turn this boat around and drop her at the emergency room. Let her become someone else's problem. He had Luna to think about. Luna, who was sleeping peacefully in her narrow bed back at the cabin, who trusted him to keep her safe, who'd already lost enough without her dad getting tangled up in God knew what. But he looked at this woman, this Isabella Reyes with her designer clothes and her terror and her gator bite, and saw something he recognized. Desperation. The kind that made you do things that didn't make sense to anyone but you. The kind he'd worn on his own face the day he'd realized his marriage was over and he'd have to raise his daughter alone. Damn it, Eli muttered. He fired up the motor and swung the skiff around, heading not toward civilization, but deeper into the swamp, toward the network of channels and sloughs that only locals knew, toward the stilt cabin he'd built with his own hands on a patch of high ground that didn't appear on any map. Isabella sagged against the bench, relief visible on her battered face. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Eli said. You're about to meet my daughter, and she asks a lot of questions. Yes. The cabin revealed itself slowly through the morning mist, rising from the swamp on 8-foot stilts like some kind of fever dream. Eli had built it himself over the course of 3 years, using salvaged lumber and sheer stubbornness. It wasn't much, 800 square feet, most of it one open room with a sleeping loft for Luna and a screened porch that wrapped around 3 sides. But it was theirs, and it was paid for, and nobody could tell him what to do with it. He guided the skiff to the small dock and killed the motor. Through the screens, he could see the battery-powered lantern he'd left on in the kitchen. 0647 on his watch. Luna would be awake soon. She was an early riser like him, liked to watch the sun come up while she drew in her sketchbook. Can you walk? Eli asked Isabella. She nodded, but when he helped her sit up, her face went gray. Maybe, slowly. Eli ended up half carrying her from the boat to the dock, her good arm slung over his shoulders, his arm around her waist. She was taller than he'd realized, 5'9", maybe 5'10", without the destroyed heels. She'd kicked them off at some point during the boat ride. They lay in the bottom of the skiff like discarded artifacts from another world. They made it 3 steps up the dock before the screen door banged open. Daddy! Luna stood on the porch in her dolphin pajamas, dark curls wild around her face, brown eyes huge. She was small for 8, skinny in that way kids are before they hit their growth spurts, all elbows and knees and questions. She looked from Eli to Isabella and back again, processing. Who's that? This is... Eli realized he didn't have a cover story. Didn't have anything except the truth, which was too complicated and too dangerous for a kid to hear. She's hurt, baby girl. I found her in the swamp. She needs our help. Luna came down the porch steps slowly, her artist's eye taking in every detail. The torn clothes, the blood-soaked bandage, Isabella's bare feet. Did a gator get her? Yeah. Is she gonna die? Not if I can help it. Luna seemed to accept this. She'd grown up in the Everglades, had seen Eli bring home injured raccoons and baby birds, and once a young panther with a broken leg. Death was part of the ecosystem here, but so was fighting against it. Should I get the big first aid kit? Good thinking, and boil some water. Luna ran back inside, her feet thumping against the rough wooden floorboards. Eli helped Isabella up the steps and through the door into the cabin's main room. It was sparse by necessity, a couch he'd bought used from Goodwill, a coffee table made from a pallet, a kitchenette with a camping stove and a propane fridge. The walls were bare wood, decorated with Luna's drawings and Eli's photographs of the swamp. He guided Isabella to the couch and helped her lie down. She was fading fast, her eyes glassy, her breathing shallow. The adrenaline that had kept her conscious this long was wearing off. Stay awake, Eli commanded. I need to check your injuries properly. Luna, water status? Heating up, Luna called from the kitchen. She appeared a moment later with the tackle box Eli had repurposed as a medical kit. I got iodine and butterfly bandages in the suture kit. Perfect. Now go wait in your loft. Close your curtain. Luna's face fell. But I want to help. Not this time, baby girl. Trust me. She knew that tone. It was the one he used when things were serious, when he needed her to listen without arguing. She handed over the tackle box and trudged to the ladder that led to her loft, casting one last curious look at the stranger on their couch. Once he heard the curtain rings slide closed, Eli turned his attention to Isabella. I need to take off what's left of your shirt. Check the damage properly. She nodded, too weak to protest. Eli worked carefully, peeling away the ruined silk and the lace bra underneath. The puncture wounds in her shoulder were deep, punched clean through the muscle. One of them was still bleeding sluggishly. He needed to irrigate them, close them up, get antibiotics into her system before infection set in. But first, he needed to understand what the hell he'd gotten himself into. Talk to me, Eli said as he poured boiled water over her shoulder, flushing out the wounds. Isabella hissed in pain but didn't pull away. Who's looking for you? Bad people. Her voice was thin, thready. Powerful people. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you right now. Her eyes met his, and Eli saw something there that reminded him of himself in the weeks after Sarah left. A kind of desperate determination. I'm sorry I brought this to your door, but I had nowhere else to go. Eli threaded a curved needle with fishing line, the strongest suture material he had. How'd you end up in my swamp? I jumped. From what? A plane. Eli's hand paused mid-stitch. You jumped from a plane into the Everglades. There was a parachute involved. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. I'm not completely suicidal. Could have fooled me. He resumed stitching, pulling the edges of the deepest puncture closed. Why? Because they were going to kill me. The smile vanished. And I have information they'd rather die than let get out. So they decided to make it look like an accident. A tragic plane crash. CEO lost over the Everglades. Such a shame. CEO. The word clicked the memory into place, and Eli felt his stomach drop. Isabella Reyes, he said slowly. EduTech Global. She looked surprised. You know who I am? I read. Luna's school uses your software. You're worth, what, $500 million? On paper. In reality, I'm worth exactly nothing because someone on my board has been embezzling millions, and when I found out, they decided I was a liability. Eli tied off the suture and started on the next puncture. His mind was racing. He'd pulled a goddamn billionaire CEO out of the swamp. A billionaire CEO who was wanted dead by people with enough money and power to sabotage a private jet. This is insane, he muttered. Yes. I should take you to the cops. They'll kill me before I make it to the police station. Isabella grabbed his wrist again, and this time her grip was iron. Please, I know this is crazy. I know I'm asking too much, but I need time. Time to figure out who I can trust. Time to get my evidence somewhere safe. Just a day or two. That's all I'm asking. A day or two. Eli laughed, but there was no humor in it. Lady, you're bleeding on my couch. You've got a gator bite that needs serious medical attention. Your face is all over the news by now. Guaranteed. And you want me to hide you in my home, where my daughter sleeps? I would never... Isabella's voice cracked. I would never put your daughter in danger. If I thought for a second that being here would hurt her, I'd walk back into that swamp right now. I swear it. Eli looked at her. Really looked. Past the designer labels and the beauty and the money. What he saw was a woman who was genuinely terrified. A woman who jumped from a plane and survived gators, and God knew what else because the alternative was worse. He'd been in situations like that, different circumstances, but the same calculation. When staying meant death and running meant maybe, possibly, surviving another day. Okay, he heard himself say. 48 hours. But you do exactly what I say, when I say it, and if I think for 1 second that you're putting Luna at risk, you're gone. Clear? Relief flooded Isabella's face. Clear. Thank you. Thank you so... Save it. Eli finished the last suture and bandaged her shoulder properly. And for the record, this is the dumbest thing I've done since I got out of the Marines. He stood and called up to the loft. Luna, you can come down now, but bring some of your clothes. Our guest needs something to wear. Luna's face appeared at the loft railing. My clothes won't fit her, she's too big. I know, but it's better than nothing. Moments later, Luna descended the ladder with an armful of t-shirts and shorts. She approached the couch slowly, staring at Isabella with unabashed curiosity. What's your name? Isabella? The woman managed a weak smile. What's yours? Luna Marie Walker. I'm 8 3/4. Did it hurt when the gator bit you? Luna, Eli warned. It's okay. Isabella's smile grew more genuine. Yes, it hurt. A lot. But your dad saved me. He's very brave. Luna considered this. He was in the war. That's where he learned to fix people. Are you going to stay here? Just for a little while. How come you were in the swamp wearing fancy clothes? Daddy says only tourists do that, and tourists are dumb. I didn't say dumb. I said unprepared. Same thing. Luna tilted her head, studying Isabella's face. You look like the lady from my school computer, the one who talks at the beginning of the math program. Eli and Isabella exchanged glances. The kid was too observant for her own good. I get that a lot, Isabella said carefully. I guess I just have one of those faces. Luna didn't look convinced, but she dropped it. Instead, she held out a t-shirt with a cartoon whale on it. You can wear this. It's my favorite, but Daddy says we share with people who need help. Something shifted in Isabella's expression. Her eyes went shiny, and she took the shirt with hands that trembled slightly. Thank you, Luna. I'll take very good care of it. By mid-morning, Eli had gotten Isabella cleaned up, dressed in Luna's too small clothes, and settled on the couch with a bottle of water and some antibiotics he kept for emergencies. Her fever was already climbing, 101.6 by the thermometer. The wounds were clean, but infection was inevitable. He'd done everything he could with what he had. Now he was standing on the porch, phone in hand, trying to decide if he should call Marcus or just row Isabella to the nearest road and dump her there with cab fare. Luna was inside, showing their unexpected guest her collection of marine biology drawings. Through the screen, Eli could hear her excited chatter. This one's a humpback whale. They can hold their breath for up to 90 minutes. And this one's a great white shark. Did you know their teeth are constantly replaced? Like they can go through 30,000 teeth in their lifetime. And this? She paused. How come you're crying? Eli tensed, ready to intervene. But Isabella's voice came soft, gentle. Because your drawings are beautiful, Luna. And because you're very smart, and you remind me of someone I used to know. Who? Myself, when I was your age. Eli heard Luna settle closer on the couch. He knew that sound, the particular creak of the middle cushion when she curled up next to someone. Were you a scientist? No, but I wanted to be. I wanted to study the ocean and protect endangered species and make the world better. Isabella's voice went distant. Instead, I built software and made money and forgot why I wanted to do any of it in the first place. You could still be a scientist, Luna said matter-of-factly. My daddy says it's never too late to change your story. He was a soldier, but now he's a nature rescuer. Well, and a photographer. And he fixes boats sometimes. He's lots of things. Your daddy sounds like a wise man. He's okay. That was Luna's ultimate compliment. He's sad sometimes, though, since Mama left. He thinks I don't notice, but I do. Eli closed his eyes. Christ. He should stop this conversation, change the subject, something. But he found himself frozen, listening. That must be hard, Isabella said. On both of you. It's okay. We got each other, and the swamp, and... Luna's voice brightened. Hey, you want to see my dream board? It's pictures I cut out of magazines, places I want to go someday. I'd love to. Footsteps thumped on the floorboards as Luna ran to her loft. Eli took the opportunity to go inside, trying to look like he'd just arrived rather than eavesdropping. Isabella glanced up at him from the couch. Her face was flushed with fever, her hair still damp and tangled, wearing a bright blue t-shirt that read, Save the Whales, in sparkly letters. She looked nothing like the polished executive whose photo had been plastered across business magazines for the last 5 years. She looked human. She's amazing. Isabella said quietly. Your daughter. Yeah, well, don't get too attached. 48 hours, remember? I remember. Luna reappeared with a poster board covered in glossy magazine cutouts. Eli had helped her make it last year, after Sarah left, as a way to give her something hopeful to focus on. Pictures of coral reefs and research submarines and marine biology labs. In the center, a photograph of the Monterey Bay Aquarium with Dream Job written in Luna's careful block letters. I'm going to work there someday, Luna announced, showing the board to Isabella. Or maybe at Woods Hole. Or National Geographic. I'm going to study cetaceans. That's whales and dolphins, and I'm going to help save them from extinction. Isabella studied the board with genuine interest. These are incredible goals, Luna. Are you doing anything to work toward them? Luna's face fell slightly. I read library books, and Daddy lets me use the computer at the library on Saturdays, but they don't have the good programs, the ones that cost money. And my school's computer lab is old and most of the software doesn't work right. Isabella looked thoughtful. What if I told you there are free resources online that could help? Databases and virtual labs and... No! Eli's voice came out sharper than he intended. Both Luna and Isabella looked at him. He softened his tone. We're doing fine with what we have. Isabella held his gaze for a long moment. She understood what he wasn't saying. We don't take charity from rich people who blow into our lives and blow out again just as fast. We don't let Luna get her hopes up about things we can't provide ourselves. Of course, Isabella said finally. I apologize. I wasn't trying to, The sudden thunder of helicopter blades cut through her words. Eli's head snapped toward the window. Through the screens, he could see nothing but trees and sky, but the sound was unmistakable. Close, getting closer. Luna, loft, now! His daughter knew that voice too, the combat voice. She grabbed her dream board and scrambled up the ladder without question. Isabella was trying to sit up, her face pale. They found me. Maybe, or maybe it's just the Coast Guard running a patrol. But Eli didn't believe that. The timing was too perfect. He moved to the window, staying back from the screens, and watched as a sleek black helicopter swept over the tree line. Not Coast Guard, not Fish and Wildlife. This was private, expensive. The helicopter circled once, low enough that Eli could see a man in the side door with binoculars. Then it banked and headed north, the roar of its engines fading into the distance. Eli waited, counted to 60, checked the sight lines from every window. They're looking for me, Isabella whispered. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I've put you both in danger. They don't know you're here. Not yet. Eli was already moving, pulling the shades, checking his weapons. The shotgun was in the closet, his old service pistol in a locked box under his bed. He'd never thought he'd need them for anything but gators and snakes. But they will eventually. They'll check every structure in a 50-mile radius. Then I'll go, right now. Isabella tried to stand and immediately sat back down, swaying. I'll figure something out. In that condition, you wouldn't make it a mile. Better me than your daughter. Eli stopped, turned, looked at this woman who'd crashed into his life 12 hours ago and was already willing to walk back into the swamp to keep his kids safe. Nobody's going anywhere, he said. Not yet. But we need a plan, and you need to tell me everything, right now. No more vague bullshit about bad people and boards. I want names. I want details. I want to know exactly what kind of shitstorm I'm standing in the middle of. Isabella nodded slowly. From the loft, he could hear Luna's whisper-quiet voice asking, Daddy, are we in trouble? No, baby girl, Eli called back, his eyes never leaving Isabella's face. We're fine. Just stay up there and keep quiet, okay? Okay. Eli grabbed a chair and sat facing the couch, his posture rigid, his expression hard. This was the man who'd interrogated suspected Taliban in Kandahar, the one who could spot a lie from 50 yards in bad light. Talk, he said, and if I think you're lying to me, I'm putting you in my boat and dropping you at the nearest ranger station. We clear? Clear. Isabella took a shaky breath and began. EduTech Global started 12 years ago with a mission: democratize education through technology. We built software that helped underprivileged schools provide the same quality education as wealthy districts. It was working. We were changing lives.
But success attracts attention. 2 years ago, my board pushed me to take the company public.
I resisted, but they had the votes. We went public, and suddenly everything was about quarterly earnings and shareholder value. And money, Eli finished. Money, Isabella agreed. 6 months ago, I noticed irregularities in our scholarship fund accounts. Small things, a few thousand here and there. I thought it was clerical errors, but I couldn't let it go. I started digging, and what I found, her voice broke. They've stolen $47 million, Eli. $47 million that was supposed to go to kids from low-income families, to programs like the one Luna dreams about. And instead, my CFO and 3 board members have been funneling it into offshore accounts. Eli felt his jaw tighten. He'd grown up poor, knew what it was like to watch other kids get opportunities that were closed to you because your parents couldn't write a check. You have proof? On a waterproof flash drive, in the bag I was wearing when I jumped. Bank records, emails, board meeting recordings. Everything. Where's the bag now? Sank. About 2 miles west of where you found me. I tried to hold on to it, but the gator... She touched her bandaged shoulder. I had to choose. So the evidence is gone. Not gone. Just temporarily inaccessible. I marked the location on my GPS watch before I threw it. She held up her wrist. If I can get to a dive shop, get some equipment, you're not diving anywhere with those injuries. And even if you could, do you have any idea how big 2 miles is in the Everglades? How deep? How many gators would love to finish what their buddies started? I know it's a long shot, but it's all I have. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the swamp had resumed its normal soundtrack. Birds calling, insects buzzing, the occasional splash of something entering the water, as if helicopters hunting for missing CEOs were just another Tuesday. These board members, Eli said finally, they have that kind of reach? Private helicopters? The ability to sabotage a plane? Victor Hale does. Isabella's voice went cold. He's the one leading this. Former Silicon Valley executive, current sociopath. He has connections everywhere, tech, finance, politics. If he wants someone found, they get found. If he wants someone gone, she didn't finish. And you were going to testify against him. I was going to bury him and everyone else involved. That's why I was flying to Miami. I had a meeting scheduled with the FBI's white-collar crime division. She laughed bitterly. Never made it. Eli rubbed his face. This was so far beyond his pay grade it wasn't even funny. He was a broke single dad who trapped gators for beer money. He had no business being involved in corporate fraud cases with 9-figure sums. But he thought about Luna, learning her multiplication tables on ancient school computers that barely worked. Thought about all the other kids like her, in other schools, other districts, who'd been promised help that never came because some rich assholes decided their yacht collections were more important. 47 million, he said. That's a lot of scholarships. 391 full-ride university scholarships, Isabella said quietly. I've done the math. 391 kids who won't get the chance to become marine biologists or doctors or engineers because of people like Victor Hale. People like Luna, Eli thought. She didn't say it, but he heard it anyway. He stood abruptly and walked to the window, looking out at the swamp that had been his refuge for 7 years. The place where he'd hidden from the world after the war, after Sarah, after everything had fallen apart. He told himself he was building a life here. But maybe he'd just been hiding. This is crazy, he muttered. I know. I should call the cops right now. I know. My daughter is 8 years old. I know. Isabella's voice was thick. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I brought this here, but please understand. If they find me, they won't just kill me. They'll kill anyone who helped me, anyone who knows. That includes you. That includes Luna. Eli turned. Are you threatening my daughter? No, God, no, I'm telling you the truth. Victor Hale doesn't leave loose ends. If he finds out you helped me, your daughter becomes a witness. And witnesses... She stopped, but Eli could fill in the rest. Witnesses disappeared. Jesus Christ. He wanted to punch something, wanted to grab Isabella, throw her in his boat, and let her be someone else's problem. But she was right. The moment he'd pulled her from that water, the moment he'd brought her to his home, he'd become part of this.
and now his daughter's safety depended on making sure these bastards never found out, which meant the only way forward was through. "Okay," Eli said. "New plan. You stay here, out of sight. I'll take Luna to school tomorrow like nothing's wrong. Then I'll figure out how to get your evidence without getting us all killed." "You do that?" Isabella looked stunned. "Why?" "Because $47 million should go to kids who need it. Because bastards like your board member shouldn't get away with this shit. And because—" He paused, surprised by his own honesty. "Because my daughter deserves a world where people like you fight back, even when it's dangerous, even when it's crazy." Isabella's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. We're probably all gonna die." From the loft, Luna's voice drifted down. "Are you done talking about secret stuff? Because I'm hungry, and it's way past breakfast time." Despite everything, Eli felt himself smile. "Yeah, baby girl, come on down, let's see what we can scrounge up." As Luna descended the ladder, chattering about wanting pancakes even though they only had cereal, Eli caught Isabella's eye. She mouthed two words. "Thank you." He nodded once, then turned to his daughter, pushing down the fear that threatened to crawl up his throat. He'd been in tight spots before, had fought his way out of ambushes in the Afghan desert, had survived firefights and IEDs and the slow poison of PTSD. This was just another kind of war. And this time, he was fighting for something that mattered more than borders or politics or oil. He was fighting for Luna's future. For all the Lunas out there who deserved their shot. And if some billionaire sociopath thought he could intimidate a Marine who'd stared down death and lived to tell about it, well, Victor Hale was about to learn a very painful lesson about what happened when you cornered a man with nothing left to lose. Eli poured cereal into 3 bowls and tried not to think about the fact that he'd just committed to going to war with people who owned helicopters. It was going to be a long 48 hours. The afternoon heat pressed down on the cabin like a wet blanket, turning the air thick and hard to breathe. Eli had sent Luna to her loft for quiet time, an hour every day where she was supposed to read or draw, but usually ended up building elaborate cities out of cardboard boxes and tape. It gave him space to think, and right now, he needed to think. Isabella was asleep on the couch, her fever climbing despite the antibiotics. 102.4 now. Eli had stripped her down to the whale t-shirt and covered her with a damp sheet, trying to keep her cool. Every few minutes, she'd mumble something incoherent, her head tossing restlessly against the cushion he'd propped under her neck. He sat at his makeshift desk, a door balanced on 2 sawhorses, and stared at his laptop. The ancient Dell took 3 minutes to boot up and ran slower than molasses, but it had internet via his phone's hotspot. He typed Isabella Reyes into the search bar and then sat there, cursor blinking, trying to decide if he really wanted to know. Finally, he hit enter. The results loaded in painful increments. News articles, business profiles, society page photos of a woman who looked like Isabella but polished to an impossible shine. Designer gowns, perfect makeup, standing next to tech moguls and politicians at charity galas. The headlines told a story. EduTech CEO promises to bridge digital divide, and Reyes technology can save public education. And from 2 days ago, tech mogul missing after private jet loses contact over Everglades. Eli clicked on the last one. The article was sparse on details, heavy on speculation. Isabella's Cessna Citation had departed Miami at 8:47 p.m. 3 nights ago, headed for a business meeting in Naples. At 9:15, the pilot had reported engine trouble. At 9:18, radar contact was lost. The Coast Guard was searching, but the Everglades were vast and unforgiving. Hope was fading. What the article didn't mention, sabotage, murder, 47 million stolen dollars. Eli scrolled down to the comments section. Always a mistake, but he couldn't help himself. Most were the usual performative grief from strangers. So tragic. Praying for her family. She was so young. But a few stood out. Good riddance. EduTech software is garbage that doesn't work half the time. Bet she faked it. Rich people always have an escape plan. Maybe she finally realized she couldn't buy her way out of her mistakes. Eli closed the laptop harder than necessary. People were vultures, quick to celebrate someone's success, quicker to tear them down the moment they stumbled. He'd seen it happen to guys in his unit, Marines who came home with PTSD, who couldn't hold jobs or relationships, who ended up homeless or worse. Suddenly, everyone who'd thanked them for their service disappeared. A soft sound from the couch made him turn. Isabella's eyes were open, staring at the ceiling, tears running down her temples into her hair. "Hey!" Eli grabbed a water bottle and moved to her side. "How you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck and then eaten by a dinosaur?" Her voice was hoarse. "How long was I asleep?" "Couple hours. Your fever's up. Drink." He helped her sit enough to swallow water without choking. Up close, he could see the fine lines around her eyes, the exhaustion etched into her face. She probably hadn't slept properly in days, maybe weeks, if she'd been investigating fraud while running a company. "I heard you typing," Isabella said. "You looked me up." It wasn't a question. Eli set the water bottle down. "Had to know what I was dealing with." "And? What's the verdict? Am I worth the trouble?" "Jury's still out." He sat on the coffee table, studying her. "You want to know what I think?" "Not particularly, but I suspect you're going to tell me anyway." "I think you built something good, something that mattered. And then you let it get away from you. You got so focused on growing it, on making it successful, that you forgot why you started in the first place." Isabella flinched like he'd struck her. That's not fair." "Isn't it? You said yourself you forgot why you wanted to change the world. That's not an accident. That's a choice you made every day for however many years." "You don't know anything about the choices I've made." Her voice had gone sharp, defensive. "You don't know what it's like to build a company from nothing, to fight for funding, to prove yourself in rooms full of men who think you're just a pretty face who got lucky. I did what I had to do to survive." "And how'd that work out for you?" The words hung in the humid air between them. Isabella opened her mouth, closed it, looked away. When she spoke again, her voice was small. "Not well, apparently." Eli sighed. He hadn't meant to be cruel. But something about this woman brought out the part of him that had been a sergeant, the part that pushed Marines to be better than they thought they could be. "Look, I'm not saying you're a bad person, but you asked me yesterday why I'd help you. The truth? I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for the kids who got screwed over, and I'm doing it to keep my daughter safe. You just happen to be the vehicle for both those things." "That's fair." Isabella looked back at him, and something in her expression had shifted. Less defensive, more honest. "For what it's worth, you're right. I did lose my way. I told myself I was playing the long game, that I'd get back to the mission once the company was stable. But stable never came. There was always another quarter, another investor meeting, another acquisition to consider. And then I woke up one day and realized I was 42 years old, running a billion-dollar company, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd done something that actually mattered. So what changed? I got an email from a teacher in rural Kentucky. She thanked me for the software grants we'd provided her school, said one of her students, a girl named Destiny, had used our marine biology simulation to discover a passion for oceanography. Destiny's essay about protecting coral reefs had won a state competition. Full scholarship to UK. Isabella's voice cracked. The teacher attached a photo. This kid, maybe Luna's age, holding a trophy bigger than her torso, grinning like she'd won the lottery. And all I could think was, how many more Destinies are out there? And what would happen to them if we stopped caring? Eli felt something loosen in his chest. That's when you started digging into the finances. That's when I started digging and found out that people I trusted, people I'd worked with for years, were stealing futures. Not money, futures. Every dollar they took was a kid who wouldn't get to be Destiny. Must have pissed you off. Piss doesn't begin to cover it. Isabella tried to sit up straighter, winced, gave up. I was going to burn them all down. Very publicly, very painfully. But Victor's smarter than I gave him credit for. He figured out what I was doing, and he moved first. From the loft, Luna's voice floated down. Daddy, can I come down yet? I finished my book. Eli checked his watch. 3:47. Close enough. Yeah, baby girl, come on. Luna descended the ladder with a thick paperback tucked under her arm, something about dolphins, from the library. She looked at Isabella, then at Eli, her dark eyes worried. Is she sicker? A little, but she's tough. She'll be okay. Luna crossed to the couch and, without asking permission, placed her small hand on Isabella's forehead. It was something she'd seen Eli do 100 times when she was sick. "You're really hot." "Thank you." Isabella managed a weak smile. "I mean, you have a fever, not that you're—" Luna's face went red. "Never mind. Do you want me to read to you? Daddy says stories help when you don't feel good." Something in Isabella's expression crumbled. "I'd like that very much." Luna settled cross-legged on the floor next to the couch and opened her book. She began reading in her careful, measured voice, still tripping over some of the bigger words, but confident nonetheless. It was a chapter about dolphin communication, their complex whistles and clicks, the theory that they might have something like names for each other. Eli watched from the kitchen while he heated up canned soup. Two people who shouldn't exist in the same world, somehow finding connection over marine mammals and fever dreams. Luna was explaining the difference between echolocation and sonar when Isabella's hand moved almost unconsciously to rest on the girl's curly head. The gesture was so natural, so maternal, that Eli felt an unexpected twist of emotion. Sarah had left when Luna was 5. Since then, his daughter had navigated the world without a mother's touch, without those small moments of physical comfort that women seem to offer more freely than men. Eli did his best, hugs and hairbrushing and tucking in at night, but he knew it wasn't the same. "Soup's ready," he called, more to break the moment than anything. They ate together at the small table, Eli and Luna in the 2 actual chairs, Isabella propped up on the couch with a bowl balanced on her lap. The soup was Campbell's chicken noodle, probably past its best-by date, but nobody complained. For a few minutes they ate in companionable silence. Then Luna asked, "Are you going to stay here forever?" Isabella set down her spoon carefully. "No, sweetheart, just a few days, until I'm feeling better." "Good. I like having you here, but Daddy says we can't feed 3 people on what we got." "Luna!" Eli's voice carried a warning. "What?" "You said that this morning when you were counting the soup cans. You said, 'I know what I said. Eat your dinner.'" Isabella was looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Pity? Understanding? "I could, if you'd let me, I could have money transferred. Enough to cover groceries, utilities." "No." The word came out flat, final. "Eli, please, I'm not trying to insult you. I'm trying to help." "We don't need help." He stood abruptly, grabbed his empty bowl, carried it to the sink with more force than necessary. "We're doing fine." "Daddy gets mad when people try to give us stuff," Luna explained to Isabella in a stage whisper. "Miss Chen wanted to give me her daughter's old laptop when she went to college, and Daddy said no, even though my birthday's not till December and I really wanted it." "That was different," Eli said through gritted teeth. "How?" "Because—" He stopped. "Because it was charity. Because accepting handouts meant admitting he couldn't provide for his own kid. Because his pride was the only thing he had left some days, and he'd be damned if he'd trade it for a used laptop or grocery money from a billionaire hiding on his couch. But he couldn't say any of that to his 8-year-old daughter, who just wanted a computer for her birthday and didn't understand why her father's stubbornness mattered more than her happiness. "Just eat," he muttered. The rest of dinner passed in awkward silence. Afterward, Luna helped Eli wash dishes. They had no dishwasher, just a plastic tub and a propane water heater, while Isabella dozed on the couch. When everything was clean, Luna asked if she could show Isabella her photo albums, and Eli didn't have the heart to say no. So he found himself sitting in the corner, ostensibly reading a thriller from the library, while Luna walked Isabella through 5 years of carefully curated images. Most of them were Eli's work. He'd bought a decent camera with his separation bonus from the Corps, and taught himself photography as therapy. The Everglades became his subject. Gators sunning on logs, great blue herons frozen mid-strike, dawn breaking over sawgrass that stretched to the horizon. But interspersed with the wildlife were photos of Luna. Learning to fish, building sandcastles on a beach 2 hours away, asleep in the skiff with a line in the water, trusting Eli to get them home safe. Growing from a gap-toothed 5-year-old to the serious, curious 8-year-old she was now. "This is from my birthday last year," Luna said, pointing to a shot of herself wearing a party hat, sitting alone at their table with a single cupcake and 1 candle. Eli had done his best,
Streamers hung from the rafters, a few dollar store presents wrapped in newspaper comics. But the empty chairs were visible in the frame. No friends, no family, just the two of them. Isabella studied the photo for a long moment. Looks like a good party. It was okay. I wished Mama could come, but Daddy says she's got her own life now in Orlando, and we gotta respect that. Luna, Eli started. It's true. You said. Luna looked at him, her eyes older than any 8-year-old should be. You said Mama needed to find her happy, and that's not a bad thing. It's just sad for us sometimes. Christ, when had his daughter become so emotionally articulate? Eli cleared his throat. Yeah, well, we do all right, just us two. We do better than all right, Luna corrected. We do good. Right, Miss Isabella? Isabella was still looking at the birthday photo. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick. You do very good. Your dad? He loves you very much. You can see it in every picture. Luna beamed. Then, with the lightning-fast subject changes only children could manage. Want to see my dream board again? I thought of more stuff I want to add. Always, Isabella said. While Luna ran to get the poster board, Eli moved to sit on the arm of the couch. You don't have to do this. Pretend to care about her kid's stuff. Isabella looked up at him, and he was surprised by the fierceness in her eyes. I'm not pretending. She's remarkable. Smart and kind and curious about the world. Do you have any idea how rare that is? She's just a kid. She's not just anything. She's going to do amazing things someday. If she gets the chance. The weight of those last 5 words settled between them. If she gets the chance. The unspoken truth. Kids like Luna, growing up poor in rural nowhere, didn't always get chances. They got obstacles. Underfunded schools and outdated equipment and people telling them to be realistic, to aim lower, to accept less. Luna returned with her board and immediately launched into detailed explanations of each cutout, each dream. Isabella listened like it was the most important presentation she'd ever heard, asking questions, making suggestions. She mentioned a free online course from MIT about marine ecosystems, a virtual mentorship program connecting students with working scientists, a scholarship database specifically for low-income students interested in STEM. Eli watched his daughter's face light up with each new possibility, watched her pull out the battered notebook where she kept lists and start writing frantically, her pencil flying across the page. And he felt something he hadn't let himself feel in a long time. Hope. It was dangerous, that feeling. Hope meant expectations. Expectations meant disappointment. He'd learned that the hard way, watching his marriage crumble, watching Sarah pack her bags and tell him she loved him but couldn't do this anymore. This being poverty and isolation and a husband who woke up screaming from nightmares 3 times a week. But Luna was writing, and Isabella was talking, and for just this moment, Eli let himself imagine a world where his daughter got to be destiny, where she got her scholarship and her research position and her chance to save the goddamn whales. The moment shattered when Isabella suddenly jerked upright, her face going pale. What? Eli was on his feet instantly. What's wrong? The helicopter. What time did it fly over? Around noon. Why? What direction was it heading when it left? Eli thought back, visualizing. North-northeast, maybe 15 degrees off true north. Isabella's hands were shaking. That's the direction of the main channel, the route most people take to get into the backcountry from Everglades City. So if they were searching from south to north methodically, they'd have started at the crash site and worked up. Which means, she grabbed his wrist, which means they'll circle back, probably tomorrow, and next time they'll have better equipment, thermal imaging maybe, ground teams. Luna had stopped writing. Are the bad people coming here? Eli wanted to lie, tell her everything was fine, that she was safe, that nothing could hurt her in their little cabin in the swamp. But he'd made a promise to himself after Sarah left, no more lies. Luna deserved truth, even when it was scary. Maybe, he said. So we're going to be extra careful. And if I tell you to hide, you hide. No questions. Understand? Luna nodded, her face serious. Like the tornado drills at school. Exactly like that. Isabella stood, swayed, caught herself on the couch arm. I need to leave. Tonight. before I bring them down on you.
You can barely stand, Eli pointed out.
How exactly are you planning to leave? I'll figure it out. Wade back into the swamp, head for the coast, where you'll either get eaten by a gator, die from infection, or get picked up by the first person who sees a woman stumbling through the Everglades in a whale t-shirt. Brilliant plan. Better than staying here and getting your daughter killed. Nobody's getting killed, Eli said, with more confidence than he felt. But you're right about one thing. If they're coming back, we need to be ready, which means I need information. Everything you can tell me about Victor Hale and his operation, resources, connections, how he thinks. I need to know my enemy. Isabella sank back onto the couch. Luna had crept closer, her notebook forgotten, watching the adults with wide eyes. Victor Hale, Isabella began slowly, is what happens when you give a narcissist infinite money and no consequences. He made his first fortune in the 90s with a software company that did nothing innovative but had great PR. Sold it for $300 million right before the dot-com bubble burst. Since then, he's been playing venture capitalist, acquiring board seats, building influence. What's his connection to EduTech? He was an early investor, put in $20 million when we were just starting out. In exchange, I gave him a board seat. Biggest mistake of my life. Isabella rubbed her face. At first he was helpful, opened doors, made introductions, but the last few years he's been pushing hard to monetize the platform. Wanted to sell user data, insert ads, charge subscription fees, everything I built the company to avoid. But you're the CEO. Can't you just overrule him? Not without board support, and Victor's been very careful about who else gets seats. 3 of the 7 board members are his people. 2 others are neutral. That leaves me and one ally, Marcus Kim, who founded a nonprofit focused on educational equity. She paused. Or I should say that left me and Marcus. Because as of 3 days ago, Marcus is dead. The words dropped into the room like stones into still water. Luna gasped. Eli felt his jaw tighten. Dead how? He asked quietly. Heart attack, officially, collapsed at his gym, died before the ambulance arrived. He was 51, marathon runner, no history of cardiac issues. Isabella's voice had gone flat. The autopsy said natural causes. I said bullshit. You think Hale killed him? I know he did. Marcus was the only person who believed me about the embezzlement. He was helping me compile evidence, agreed to testify if I went to the authorities. 2 days later, he's dead. 1 day after that, my plane goes down. She looked at Eli. You see the pattern? He did. Eliminate allies, isolate the target, strike when they're alone. It was basic tactical thinking, and it was working.
So who's your ally now? Eli asked. Who else knows about this? No one. That's the problem. I don't know who I can trust. Victor has people everywhere, in my company, in tech circles, probably in law enforcement. That's why I can't go to the police, why I can't use my real identity. The moment I surface, I'm a target again. What about the FBI meeting you mentioned, the white-collar crime unit? My contact there is Special Agent Sarah Chen, but without evidence, without the flash drive, I'm just another paranoid executive with conspiracy theories. She was already skeptical, told me to bring proof or don't bother coming. Eli paced the small cabin, his mind working through scenarios, possibilities. This was above his pay grade, way above. But he'd been in situations before where the mission changed, where you had to adapt or die. And right now, keeping Luna safe meant figuring out how to neutralize a threat that had money, power, and a willingness to kill. The flash drive, he said. You're absolutely certain about the location? Within 100 yards. I was wearing a GPS watch when I jumped. Marked the coordinates as a waypoint before I threw it. Why'd you throw it? The gator was coming. I needed both hands free. Thought... She laughed bitterly. Thought I could come back for it later. Didn't count on losing consciousness and washing up half dead 2 miles from where I went in. Eli stopped pacing, looked at her. If I could get that flash drive, would it be enough? Enough to take to the FBI to make them act fast? Yes, absolutely. Bank records don't lie. And the emails. Victor was sloppy sometimes, sent things from his personal account. There's one thread where he jokes about redistributing scholarship funds to more deserving recipients, by which he meant himself. Okay. Eli made a decision. The kind you made when all your options were bad, but doing nothing was worse.
I'll get it. Isabella stared at him. Did you just say you'd dive for a flash drive in a gator-infested swamp?
I've done stupider things. Usually involve being shot at, but hey, variety is the spice of life. Daddy, that's dangerous, Luna said, her voice small. Eli knelt beside his daughter, taking her hands. I know, baby girl. But sometimes we have to do dangerous things to protect people we care about. You understand? Luna nodded, but her eyes were shiny with unshed tears. What if you don't come back? Then you grab the emergency bag from under my bed, you take the skiff, and you go to Sheriff Martinez's house in Chokoloskee. You remember where that is? The blue house with the pelican mailbox. That's right. You tell him everything that happened. He'll take care of you. But I want you to take care of me. Eli pulled her into a hug, feeling her small body shake against his. I'm coming back. I promise. Marines don't break promises. Over Luna's head, he met Isabella's eyes. She looked stricken. You don't have to do this. It's not your fight. Yeah, Eli said. It is. The moment you told me about those scholarships, it became my fight. Because my daughter, she's one of those kids. The ones who deserve a shot and probably won't get one. And if I can do something about that, even something stupid and dangerous, then I'm going to do it. He released Luna and stood. But I'm not going tonight. Too dark, too risky. Tomorrow morning, before dawn. Luna goes to school like normal. Mrs. Rodriguez will pick her up like always for the bus. You stay here, keep the doors locked, don't answer for anyone. What if the helicopter comes back while you're gone? Then you go to the panic room. Luna perked up. We have a panic room? We're about to. Eli grabbed a crowbar from his tool collection. Come on, I'm going to show you something cool. He led them to the back corner of the cabin, where his bedroom met the exterior wall. The floor here was simple plywood, nailed down but not glued. Eli worked the crowbar under a seam and pried up a section, revealing the space between the floor joists. Below that, about 4 feet down, was the surface of the swamp. When I built this place, Eli explained, I made a few modifications, paranoid vet stuff. This board comes up easy if you know where to push. He showed Luna the hidden latch. Underneath, there's a crawl space that leads to a hollow in one of the support pilings. It's waterproof, big enough for one person to hide. There's a sealed container down there with supplies, water, energy bars, emergency radio, flares. Luna peered into the dark space, fascinated. That's actually super cool. Yeah, well, hope we never have to use it. Eli replaced the floorboard and stood. But if I say panic room, that's where you go. Both of you. Don't come out until I say so or until help arrives. Got it? They both nodded. The rest of the evening passed in tense preparation. Eli checked his dive equipment, mask, snorkel, fins, and a waterproof bag. He didn't have proper scuba gear, but for a shallow dive in murky water, free diving would be safer anyway. Less noise, more mobility. He cleaned and loaded his weapons, checked the battery levels on his flashlights, laid out his clothes for the morning. Luna was unusually quiet during her bedtime routine. Eli read her 2 chapters from her dolphin book instead of 1, let her stay up 15 minutes past her usual time. When he finally tucked her in, she grabbed his hand. Daddy? I'm scared. I know, sweetheart, me too. But you're brave. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing the right thing anyway. Luna thought about this. Is Miss Isabella doing the right thing? Running away and hiding? Sometimes running away is the right thing. Sometimes you have to retreat to fight another day. The trick is knowing when to run and when to stand. Are you going to stand? Eli kissed her forehead. I'm going to get that flash drive. Then Miss Isabella can stand and the bad guys will go away and everything will go back to normal. He didn't mention that normal meant Isabella leaving, disappearing back into her world of board meetings and private jets while they stayed here in the swamp with their canned soup and library books. Luna would figure that out soon enough. No point dwelling on it tonight. After Luna finally fell asleep, Eli returned to the main room. Isabella was at the table writing in a small notebook he hadn't seen before. She looked up when he approached. Coordinates, she explained, turning the notebook so he could see, and a map of the area. Best approach routes, where the currents run strongest, places to avoid. I flew over this region enough times to know the layout. Eli studied her notes. They were detailed, precise. You're a pilot? Was. Long time ago. My father taught me when I was 16. He said every person should know how to navigate, by air, water, and land. Her smile was sad. He died before he could see me build EduTech. Sometimes I wonder what he'd think of what I became. What do you think he'd think? Isabella was quiet for a long moment. I think he'd be disappointed. Not in the company, but in me. For losing sight of why it mattered. For letting people like Victor Hale get close enough to corrupt it. You're trying to fix it now. That counts. Does it? Or am I just trying to assuage my guilt by destroying everything in a blaze of righteous anger? Eli pulled out the other chair and sat. You want my honest opinion? Not really, but again, I suspect that won't stop you. I think you're pissed off, yeah, and you should be. But I also think you actually care. About those kids, about making things right. I've met people who only care about looking good, about their reputation. You're not that. You're a mess, but you're a mess who gives a shit. Isabella laughed, a sound that was half sob. That might be the nicest thing anyone said to me in years. I'm a mess who gives a shit. It's a solid epitaph. God, I hope not. I have a lot I still need to fix. She closed the notebook. Eli, if something goes wrong tomorrow, if you can't find the drive, or if you run into trouble, I need you to promise me something. Don't. Promise me you'll take Luna and run. Don't try to protect me. Don't try to be a hero. Just get your daughter somewhere safe. I'm not promising that. Eli, no. He stood abruptly. I'm not having this conversation. I'm getting the drive, you're getting your evidence to the FBI, and we're all going to be fine. End of story. Isabella looked like she wanted to argue, but something in his face must have convinced her to let it go. Instead, she said, Thank you. For everything. I know I keep saying that, but then stop saying it. We're not done yet. He left her at the table and went to stand on the porch, looking out at the swamp. The moon was up now, nearly full, turning the water silver. Somewhere in the darkness, an alligator bellowed, a deep primal sound that carried for miles. Other gators answered, a prehistoric chorus that had echoed through these wetlands for millions of years before humans showed up to complicate things. Eli heard the screen door open behind him. Isabella joined him at the railing, keeping a respectful distance. It's beautiful, she said softly. I'd forgotten how beautiful the world can be when you stop long enough to look. Yeah, well, the Everglades grow on you, or eat you, one of the two. They stood in silence for a while, listening to the night sounds. Finally, Isabella spoke again. Luna told me, when you were checking your equipment, she told me you have nightmares sometimes. From the war. Eli's jaw tightened. She talks too much. She's worried about you. Said you wake up yelling and she has to come down and remind you where you are. It's handled. Is it? He turned to face her, anger flaring. You've been here one day. You don't get to psychoanalyze me. I'm not trying to... Isabella stopped, started over. I just meant, I understand. What it's like to carry things, to pretend you're fine when you're falling apart. This isn't the same. Isn't it? You think I don't have my own demons? My own moments where I wake up and can't remember how I got here? What choices led me to this point? Her voice cracked. I jumped out of a plane, Eli. Jumped. Because staying in it meant dying, but jumping meant maybe living. Do you have any idea how terrifying that was? How surreal? Eli felt his anger drain away. Yeah, he said quietly. I do. They looked at each other in the moonlight. Two people carrying weight they'd never asked for, never wanted, but somehow had to bear anyway. I'm sorry, Isabella said, about your nightmares, about everything you've been through. I'm sorry some asshole tried to kill you. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Disaster recognizes disaster. Isabella laughed, the sound genuine this time. Then, impulsively, she reached out and squeezed his hand. Just once, briefly, before letting go. Get some sleep. You've got a dive to survive tomorrow. Inspiring pep talk. I try. She went inside, leaving Eli alone with the swamp and his thoughts. He stayed there until his legs started to cramp, until the moon moved past the tree line and the temperature dropped to something almost comfortable. Tomorrow, he'd dive into dark water full of predators and search for a piece of technology that might or might not still be there. He'd do it without backup, without training for this specific kind of insanity. And he'd do it because $47 million should go to kids like Luna, and because sometimes you didn't get to choose your battles. They chose you. Eli went inside, locked the doors, checked on Luna one more time. She was sprawled across her bed, blanket kicked off, looking peaceful in a way he hoped she'd stay. Then he lay down on the floor beside the couch where Isabella slept. Someone needed to keep watch, and closed his eyes. He didn't expect to sleep, but exhaustion dragged him under anyway, pulling him into dreams of dark water and distant helicopter sounds, and his daughter's voice calling for him through the swamp. He woke before dawn to the sound of his own racing heart and Isabella's hand on his shoulder, shaking him gently. "You were dreaming," she whispered. "It's okay. You're home. You're safe." Eli looked up at her, this woman who shouldn't be here, who'd crashed into their lives and turned everything sideways. In the pre-dawn gloom, she looked almost ghostly, her dark hair a tangle around her face, her eyes shadowed with worry and fever. "It's time," he said. Isabella nodded. "It's time." And somewhere in the darkness, a helicopter started its engine and began its hunt. The water was the color of old coffee. Visibility maybe 3 feet on a good day. Today wasn't a good day. Eli floated face down in the shallows, breathing through his snorkel, letting his eyes adjust to the murky underwater world. Schools of mosquito fish darted away from his presence. A soft-shell turtle watched him from a submerged log with ancient, unblinking eyes. He'd left the cabin an hour before sunrise, while Luna was still asleep and Isabella kept watch from the porch. The coordinates from her GPS watch had led him here, to a stretch of open water hemmed in by mangroves, about 6 miles from where he'd found her. The bottom was maybe 12 feet down, give or take. Shallow enough for free diving, deep enough to be dangerous if something went wrong. Eli had done search and recovery dives before, back when he was with Force Recon. But that was in clear Caribbean water with proper equipment and a dive buddy. This was different. This was solo work in conditions that would make a professional diver turn around and bill you for the consultation anyway. He took 3 deep breaths, hyperventilating to saturate his blood with oxygen, then duck dove and kicked hard for the bottom. The pressure built in his ears. He equalized, kept descending. The light from above turned green, then brown, then almost black. His hand touched mud and decomposing vegetation. He'd reached the bottom. The flash drive could be anywhere in a 100-yard radius. Isabella had marked where she'd thrown her GPS watch, but current and time meant the actual evidence could have drifted. Eli began a grid search, running his hands through the muck, feeling for anything that didn't belong. Sticks, rocks, a rusty beer can that had probably been down here since the 70s, but no waterproof bag. His lungs started to burn. He surfaced, gasped air, went down again. This pattern repeated for the next 40 minutes. Dive, search, surface, breathe. Dive, search, surface, breathe. Each time he came up empty. Each time the sun climbed higher and his window of safety got smaller. Helicopter patrols would start soon. He needed to find this thing and get gone. On his 8th dive, his hand closed around something that made his heart jump. Fabric. Synthetic. He pulled, and a black waterproof messenger bag emerged from the mud like some kind of treasure from a shipwreck. The strap was tangled in cypress roots, which explained why it hadn't drifted. Eli worked it free, checked inside. The bag was sealed tight, still dry. And inside, wrapped in a plastic Ziploc, was a small flash drive. $47 million in evidence smaller than his thumb. Eli kicked for the surface, broke through with a gasp of relief and triumph. He'd done it. Against all odds, in water that shouldn't have given up its secrets, he'd found what they needed. That's when he heard the helicopter. It was distant, but getting closer, the distinctive thrum of rotors carrying across the open water. Eli's training kicked in immediately. He dove back under, swimming for the cover of the mangroves, keeping the bag above water. The roots formed a natural blind where he could hide and still breathe. He wedged himself into the tangle of wood and mud and went still. The helicopter passed overhead, low enough that Eli could see it through the canopy. Same black machine as yesterday, still unmarked. It made a slow circle, the man in the side door scanning with binoculars.
Eli held his breath even though he was above water, every muscle tensed. The helicopter hovered for what felt like an hour but was probably less than 2 minutes. Then it banked west and moved on, continuing its search pattern. Eli waited another 5 minutes, counting his heartbeats, before he allowed himself to move. He extracted himself from the mangroves and started the long swim back to where he'd left his skiff. Every sound made him flinch. Every shadow might be a helicopter returning or a gator investigating the disturbance. By the time he reached the boat, his arms were shaking with exhaustion and adrenaline. He hauled himself over the side, collapsed on the bottom, and just breathed for a minute. The waterproof bag lay next to him, innocuous and world-changing. He fired up the motor and pointed the skiff toward home, keeping to the narrow channels where helicopters couldn't track him easily. The morning was heating up fast, turning the Everglades into a steam bath. Sweat stung his eyes. His shoulder throbbed where he'd scraped it on a cypress knee. But he had the evidence. That was all that mattered. The cabin appeared through the morning haze like a mirage. Eli cut the motor and drifted the last 100 yards, scanning for anything out of place. Everything looked normal. The porch screens were intact. No boats at the dock except his, no signs of forced entry or violence. He tied off and climbed onto the dock, bag in hand. His legs felt like jelly. How long had he been gone? 2 hours? 3? Time underwater always felt distorted. The screen door opened before he could reach it. Isabella stood there, her face gray with fever and worry. Thank God, I heard the helicopter and thought, I'm fine. And I got it. Eli held up the bag. Relief flooded her features. You actually found it. I can't believe you actually... She swayed, caught herself on the doorframe. Eli dropped the bag and grabbed her arm. When's the last time you took your antibiotics? I don't remember. An hour ago? Maybe 2. Jesus, Isabella. He guided her back inside and to the couch. Her skin was furnace hot. Your fever's worse. It's fine, I'm fine. The flash drive, we need to... The flash drive can wait 5 minutes while I make sure you're not dying of sepsis. Eli grabbed his thermometer. 103.8. Not good. Definitely not good. The puncture wounds in her shoulder looked angry and inflamed despite his best efforts at wound care. He needed to get her to a hospital, or at least to Marcus Chen, who had actual medical training beyond battlefield triage. But moving her meant exposure, meant risk. And they were so close now. So close to ending this. I'm calling Marcus, Eli decided. He can come here. Bring better antibiotics. Check you properly. Isabella grabbed his wrist weakly. No one else can know I'm here. The fewer people involved. You're burning up. This isn't negotiable. Eli, please, just let me see the flash drive first. Let me make sure it's the right one. Then you can call whoever you want. He wanted to argue, but the desperate hope in her eyes stopped him. Fine. 5 minutes to verify the evidence, then he was calling Marcus whether she liked it or not. Eli retrieved his laptop and booted it up with agonizing slowness. Isabella sat forward, her hands trembling as she took the flash drive from its protective bag. The device looked undamaged despite its time underwater. She plugged it into the USB port. Nothing happened for a long moment. Then a window popped up, asking for a password. Okay, Isabella whispered. She typed with 2 fingers, careful, precise. The folders opened like a flower blooming, revealing dozens of files. Bank records, emails, recorded board meetings, an entire criminal conspiracy laid bare in ones and zeros. It's all here, she breathed. Everything. The wire transfers, the shell companies, the emails where Victor jokes about it. She clicked through files rapidly, her fever momentarily forgotten. This is enough. This will bury them. So we take it to your FBI contact, this Agent Chen. Yes, but I can't just email it. Too easy to intercept, to dismiss as fabricated. I need to deliver it in person, with context, with testimony. Isabella looked at him. Which means I need to get to Miami, today. You can't even stand without help. How are you planning to get to Miami? I'll figure it out. You've done enough, more than enough. This is where you step back, where you and Luna stay safe while I... A sound from the loft cut her off. Luna's sleepy voice. Daddy, you're back? Eli closed the laptop quickly, ejecting the flash drive and pocketing it in one smooth motion. Yeah, baby girl, I'm back. Come on down. Luna descended the ladder in her pajamas, hair a wild nest of curls, rubbing her eyes. She looked at Isabella on the couch, then at Eli, her 8-year-old instinct sensing tension. Did you find what you were looking for? I did. Is Miss Isabella going to leave now? The question hung in the air, simple and devastating. Because yes, Isabella would leave, had to leave. There was no scenario where a billionaire CEO stayed hidden in a swamp cabin while her enemies searched for her. But Luna didn't understand that. Luna just knew that the interesting woman who liked her drawings and asked about marine biology was about to disappear like everyone else in her life seemed to. Not yet, Eli said carefully. But soon. Miss Isabella has important work to do, people who need her help. Luna's face fell. She tried to hide it the way she always did, that practiced stoicism of a kid who'd learned early that showing disappointment only made adults feel guilty. But Eli saw it anyway, felt it like a knife between his ribs. Hey, he said gently. Come here. Luna crossed to him, and he pulled her into a hug. She was getting so big. When had that happened? Seemed like yesterday she was a toddler clinging to his leg, and now she was this whole person with opinions and dreams and heartbreak. I know you're sad, Eli murmured into her hair. Change is hard, but sometimes people come into our lives just for a little while, to teach us something or help us or remind us of what matters. That doesn't make it less real, understand? Luna nodded against his chest, then muffled, Can I give her something before she goes? Of course. Luna pulled away and ran to her loft. Eli heard her rummaging around up there, the sound of papers rustling and drawers opening. Isabella watched from the couch, her eyes suspiciously bright. She's going to kill me, Isabella said quietly. Your daughter. She's going to absolutely destroy me when I leave. Yeah, well, join the club. Luna reappeared holding a piece of paper carefully by the edges, like it was precious and fragile. She approached Isabella slowly. I made this. Last night after I went to bed. I couldn't sleep, so I drew. She held out the paper. Isabella took it with trembling hands. It was a drawing in colored pencil, surprisingly sophisticated for an 8-year-old. 2 figures stood on a dock, one tall, one small, both looking out at a swamp sunset. In the sky above them, dolphins leaped through clouds. Below, written in careful cursive, for Miss Isabella. Thank you for showing me I can dream bigger. Love, Luna. Isabella made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. She pressed the drawing to her chest like she could absorb it through her skin. Luna, I don't have words. This is the most beautiful thing anyone's ever given me. Luna scuffed her bare foot against the floor. Do you really like it? I love it. I'm going to keep it forever. And every time I look at it, I'll remember the smart, kind, brave girl I met in a swamp cabin. Okay? Okay. Luna hesitated, then climbed onto the couch next to Isabella and hugged her. Not a kid hug, quick and obligatory. A real hug, fierce and desperate, the kind that said, please don't leave and please be okay and please remember me. Isabella hugged back just as fiercely, and Eli had to look away. Had to find something else to focus on because watching his daughter bond with someone who was about to vanish was too much. He'd failed Luna in so many ways already. Failed to keep her mother around. Failed to provide the life she deserved. And now he was failing to protect her from this hurt too. He busied himself making breakfast. Powdered eggs and canned fruit. The breakfast of champions. By the time it was ready, Luna had released Isabella and was chattering about the homework she needed to finish before school. Mrs. Rodriguez would be picking her up at 7:45 for the bus. Normal Tuesday routine. As if nothing weird was happening at all. They ate together at the small table, maintaining the fiction of normalcy. Isabella pushed food around her plate without eating much. Her fever was making her nauseous, Eli guessed. Luna talked enough for all 3 of them, explaining her science project about the Everglades ecosystem and how she needed to collect water samples from 3 different locations. We could go this weekend, Luna suggested, looking at her father with hope. You, me, and maybe Miss Isabella, if she's still here? I won't be, Isabella said gently, but your dad knows the best spots. He'll help you get amazing samples. Will you come back after you do your important work? Isabella glanced at Eli, who kept his expression carefully neutral. I don't know, sweetheart.
My life is complicated, but I'll think about you all the time. I promise. It was the best answer she could give, and Luna seemed to accept it. The kid was resilient in ways that broke Eli's heart, too used to people leaving, too practiced at not asking for more than she could have. At 7:40, they heard the rumble of Mrs. Rodriguez's ancient pickup truck coming down the access road. Luna grabbed her backpack, gave Isabella another quick hug, then kissed Eli's cheek. "Be careful today, Daddy," she whispered. "Always am. Love you, baby girl." "Love you too." She ran out the door, screen banging behind her, and disappeared into Mrs. Rodriguez's truck. Eli watched until the red taillights faded into the tree line. Then he turned to Isabella. "Okay, no more stalling. I'm calling Marcus." "Eli, don't. You're sick. You need real medical care. Marcus is discreet, he's skilled, and he owes me. He'll come, he'll help, and he won't ask questions." Isabella looked like she wanted to argue, but her body chose that moment to betray her. She swayed, her eyes rolling back and slumped sideways on the couch. "Shit!" Eli was at her side in 2 strides, checking her pulse. Thready and fast. Her fever had to be pushing 104 now, maybe higher. He grabbed his phone and dialed Marcus's number. It rang 4 times before a groggy voice answered. "This better be good, Walker. It's barely 8 in the morning. I need you at my place, now. Medical emergency." Marcus's tone sharpened immediately, the combat medic sliding back into place. "How bad?" "Infected gator bite, high fever. Patient's been conscious but getting worse. I've got basic antibiotics but nothing strong enough." "Jesus, okay. I can be there in 40 minutes with a field kit. Keep her hydrated, monitor her breathing. If she stops making sense or starts seizing, you call Coast Guard and damn the consequences." "Copy?" "Copy." Eli ended the call and focused on keeping Isabella stable. He got her lying flat, elevated her feet, sponged her face and neck with cool water. Her eyelids fluttered. "Marcus is coming," Eli told her. "You're going to be okay." "The flash drive," she mumbled. "Don't let them—" "I've got it. It's safe. Just rest." But she grabbed his wrist with surprising strength, her fever-bright eyes finding his. "If something happens to me, if I don't make it, you take it to Agent Chen, federal building in Miami. Promise me. Nothing's happening to you. Promise me, Eli." He didn't want to. Promising meant acknowledging the possibility that she might not survive this, that infection or fever or sheer bad luck might take her despite everything. But her grip on his wrist was iron, and her eyes were desperate. "I promise," he said. She relaxed, sinking back against the couch cushions. "Thank you. For everything. You're good people, Eli Walker. You and Luna both. Save the deathbed confessions. You're not dying on my couch. I just cleaned it." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Then her eyes closed and she was unconscious again, her breathing shallow and rapid. Eli paced, checked his watch. 37 minutes until Marcus arrived. 37 minutes of watching a woman burn up with fever and praying he hadn't made a catastrophic error in judgment by keeping her here instead of taking her to a hospital 2 days ago. The sound of an engine made him freeze. Too soon for Marcus. Wrong direction. Eli moved to the window and looked out through the screens. A sleek speedboat was approaching, cutting through the water with the kind of aggressive speed that meant expensive engine and someone who didn't care about wake damage. The boat pulled up to Eli's dock without asking permission, and 2 men climbed out. They weren't fish and wildlife, weren't park rangers. One wore a suit that probably cost more than Eli's truck. The other was dressed in tactical gear, cargo pants, black t-shirt, boots. Both moved with the confidence of people used to getting what they wanted. Eli's hand went to the pistol tucked into his waistband. He'd put it there this morning, just in case. Now he was glad he had. The suited man knocked on the screen door, not aggressive, almost polite. "Hello? Anyone home?" Eli moved to the door, keeping his body blocking the view of the interior, of Isabella unconscious on the couch. "Can I help you?" The suited man smiled. He had perfect teeth and dead eyes. "I certainly hope so. My name is Victor Hale. I'm looking for someone." "A woman. About 5'10", dark hair, probably injured. She went missing a few days ago, and we're very concerned about her welfare." The name hit Eli like a physical blow. Victor Hale.
The man who'd orchestrated a plane crash, who'd stolen $47 million, who'd killed his own board member. Standing on Eli's porch like a neighbor borrowing sugar. Eli kept his face neutral. Haven't seen anyone like that. Just me and my daughter out here. Victor's smile didn't waver. The thing is, we've been conducting an aerial search, and this cabin, your cabin, is one of the few structures in the area where someone could conceivably hide. So I thought I'd check, just to be thorough. Well, you've checked. There's no one here. Have a nice day. Eli started to close the door, but the man in tactical gear put his boot against it. Not threatening, not yet, just preventing it from closing. See? Here's my problem, Victor said conversationally. The woman I'm looking for, Isabella Reyes, she's mentally unstable, suffering from delusions, paranoia. We've been trying to get her help, but she ran. And if she's out here somewhere, hurt and alone, she could die. I'm sure you understand our concern. Like I said, haven't seen her. Would you mind if we took a quick look around, just to put our minds at ease? Yeah, I would mind. This is private property. You're trespassing. Victor's smile finally faded. Mr. Walker, is it? Elijah Walker, Marine Corps veteran, Force Recon, honorably discharged 7 years ago. Single father to Luna Marie Walker, age 8, currently attending Everglades Elementary. You trap alligators for the Wildlife Center, take occasional photography gigs, barely scraping by financially. The implied threat was crystal clear. Eli's hand moved toward his pistol. Easy, Victor said, noticing. The tactical guy's hand moved too, hovering over his own weapon. Nobody needs to get hurt here. I'm just trying to find a sick woman who needs help. Surely a Marine can understand the importance of helping people. Surely a billionaire can understand the importance of respecting property rights and fucking off when told to. Victor's eyes hardened. I'm going to ask you one more time, Mr. Walker. Have you seen Isabella Reyes? Eli met his gaze without flinching. This was a man used to intimidating people with money and power and veiled threats. But Eli had been intimidated by Taliban fighters with AK-47s and a willingness to die for their cause. Some corporate sociopath in an expensive suit didn't even register. One more time, Eli said slowly. Get off my property. Victor studied him for a long moment. Then he stepped back, hands raised in mock surrender. Of course. My apologies for the intrusion, but if you do happen to see Ms. Reyes, please contact me immediately. There's a substantial reward for information leading to her safe return. He pulled a business card from his pocket and set it on the porch railing. My personal number. Call any time. He turned and walked back to the speedboat, the tactical guy following. They untied and roared away, leaving a wake that rocked Eli's skiff violently against the dock. Eli waited until they were out of sight before he allowed himself to breathe. His hands were shaking. Victor Hale had been 30 feet from Isabella. If he'd pushed harder, if he'd forced his way inside, if he'd seen her lying unconscious on that couch. The sound of another boat engine made Eli's heart slam against his ribs. But this one was familiar. The distinctive sputter of Marcus Chen's fishing boat, older than dirt but maintained with obsessive care. Marcus pulled up to the dock and hopped out with a medical bag. He was 50-something, compact and lean, with graying hair and the kind of weathered face that came from decades in the Florida sun. He took one look at Eli's expression and asked, "Who were those guys?" "Bad news. How much did you see?" "Enough to know you're in trouble. What's going on, Eli?" "Can't tell you. The less you know, the safer you are." Marcus absorbed this. "The patient inside?" "Yeah. And Marcus, you never saw her. You were never here. Understand?" "Understood." Marcus headed for the cabin door without another word. Some things you didn't question with old friends. Inside, Marcus went straight to Isabella and began his assessment with practiced efficiency. Temperature, pulse, respiration, blood pressure. He examined the shoulder wounds, probing gently, his face growing more concerned. "These are infected," he said flatly. "Badly. I need to irrigate them, debride the dead tissue, get some serious antibiotics into her. The fever. When did it start?" "Yesterday afternoon. I've been giving her amoxicillin, but not strong enough. Not for this." Marcus pulled supplies from his bag. "I've got ceftriaxone, injectable. It'll work faster, hit harder, but even with that, she needs to be in a hospital. This is beyond field medicine.
Can't do that.
Eli, can't. Not yet.
Just do what you can, please.
Marcus looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded and got to work. The next hour was brutal. Marcus cleaned the wounds thoroughly, which meant Isabella woke up screaming despite her fever. Eli had to hold her down while Marcus debrided necrotic tissue, flushed the punctures with saline and antiseptic. By the time he was done, Isabella was sobbing, and Eli felt like he'd personally tortured her. Marcus administered the antibiotic injection, then set up an IV bag. She needs fluids. Fever's dehydrated her. This should help, but I'm not kidding about the hospital. If she's not improving in the next 6 hours, you need to get her to a real doctor. 6 hours, Eli agreed. Thank you, Marcus. Don't thank me yet. She's not out of the woods.
Marcus started packing up his supplies. You want to tell me what this is really about? No? Figured. Well, if you change your mind, you know where to find me. He paused at the door. Those guys who were here, they had that look. Professional trouble. You watch your back, Eli, and that little girl of yours. Always do. After Marcus left, Eli collapsed into a chair and just sat there, drained. Victor Hale knew. Maybe not for certain, but he suspected. And suspicion was enough for a man like that. He'd be back. With more people, better equipment, less politeness. Eli had maybe 12 hours before the situation went from bad to catastrophic. Isabella stirred on the couch, her eyes opening. The IV fluids and antibiotics were already doing their job. Her gaze was clearer, more focused. What happened? Marcus patched you up. You're going to live. Victor was here, wasn't he? I heard voices. Yeah, he was fishing. I didn't bite. But he knows. He suspects.
Isabella tried to sit up, winced, fell back. Then we're out of time. He'll come back with a warrant. With cops he's paid off. She stopped, breathing hard. You need to get me out of here tonight, before Luna comes home. Eli had been thinking the same thing. Can you travel? I'll have to. Is there somewhere I could go? Somewhere safe, just until I'm strong enough to get to Miami? He thought through his options. They were limited. Most people he knew couldn't be trusted with something this dangerous. Except, yeah, he said slowly. Maybe. There's a guy, name's Jack Brennan, ex-Navy SEAL, runs an airboat tour business out of Flamingo. Lives completely off-grid, doesn't trust the government, heavily armed. If I asked him to hide someone for a few days, he wouldn't ask questions. Can you call him? Jack doesn't do phones. We'd have to go there. It's about 20 miles by water. 3, maybe 4 hours at safe speeds. Isabella absorbed this. Okay, we wait until dark, then we go. Give me the afternoon to get stronger. The antibiotics will help. And if Victor comes back before then we fight. She met his eyes. I'm done running, Eli. If he wants me, he's going to have to take me. And I'm betting a Marine and a pissed-off CEO can make that expensive for him. Despite everything, Eli found himself smiling. You're tougher than you look. I jumped out of a plane and survived gator country. Damn right I'm tough. They spent the afternoon preparing. Eli loaded the skiff with supplies, food, water, fuel, weapons. He cleaned his rifles, checked ammunition, packed a go bag with essentials in case they had to abandon everything. Isabella rested but stayed awake, forcing herself to eat, to drink, to rebuild her strength. The antibiotics were working. Her fever dropped to 101, then to 100. At 3:30, Luna came home from school full of excited chatter about her science project. She showed them water samples she'd collected from a puddle near the bus stop. Eli praised her initiative while simultaneously dying inside, because how the hell was he going to explain that the interesting woman was leaving tonight and they might never see her again? But Luna surprised him. Kids always did. Miss Isabella's leaving soon, isn't she? Luna said at dinner. More canned soup, this time with crackers that were only slightly stale. Eli and Isabella exchanged glances. Yeah, Eli said. Tonight, probably. It's time. Luna nodded, processing this. Can I ask you something before you go? Anything, Isabella said. Do you think I'll really be a marine biologist someday? Or is it just a kid dream that won't happen? Isabella set down her spoon very carefully.
Luna, I think you're going to be whatever you decide to be. You're smart enough, curious enough, determined enough. The only question is whether you'll get the chances you need, and that... She paused.
That's on adults like me to make sure you do. How? By fighting for you. By making sure people in power don't steal from kids like you. By building systems that work for everyone, not just rich people. Isabella's voice grew stronger. I made mistakes, big ones, but I'm going to fix them. And when I do, kids like you, kids everywhere, are going to have better chances. I promise you that. Luna thought about this seriously. Okay, I believe you. Thank you. That means more than you know. After dinner, while Luna was in the loft packing her bag for tomorrow, Isabella pulled Eli aside. When this is over, when Victor and his people are in prison, I'm coming back to check on you both, to make sure Luna gets her shot. Would that be okay? Eli wanted to say no, wanted to protect his daughter from the inevitable disappointment when life or business or simple distance made those good intentions evaporate. But he looked at this woman who'd survived a plane crash and gator attack and fever, who'd given his daughter hope and drawings and promises, and found himself nodding. Yeah, he said, that would be okay. Good. Isabella squeezed his hand. Thank you for everything, for believing me when you had no reason to, for risking everything to help a stranger. Wasn't just any stranger. Was a stranger who cared about the right things. They held each other's gaze for a moment that stretched longer than it should have. Then Eli cleared his throat and stepped back. We should leave at sunset while there's still enough light to navigate but enough darkness for cover. Agreed. At 6:47, with the sun painting the western sky orange and gold, Eli loaded the last of their supplies into the skiff. Luna stood on the dock, trying very hard not to cry. I don't want you to go, she whispered to Isabella. I know, sweetheart. I don't want to either. But sometimes we have to do hard things. Will I see you again? Yes, I promise. And when you do, I'm going to have stories about how we made things better. For you and for kids like you everywhere. Luna threw her arms around Isabella one last time. Isabella held her close, her eyes squeezed shut, her face a mask of controlled emotion. Then Eli gently separated them. Come on, baby girl. Let's get you inside. You've got homework. I hate homework. I know, but it's important. Makes you smart like Miss Isabella. He walked Luna back to the cabin, got her settled with her books and pencils. Through the window, he could see Isabella in the skiff, waiting. The sun was sinking fast. Daddy? Luna's voice was small. You're coming back, right? You're not leaving too? Eli knelt beside her chair. I'm always coming back. Nothing could keep me from you. I'll be gone tonight, but Mrs. Rodriguez is going to come stay here. She'll sleep in my room, make you breakfast, get you to school, and I'll be back tomorrow, promise. Marines don't break promises. That's right. He kissed her forehead, called Mrs. Rodriguez to confirm she was on her way, then headed down to the dock. Isabella had already started the motor, keeping it at idle. Eli untied the lines and pushed off. As they pulled away from the cabin, Eli looked back. Luna stood on the porch, one hand raised in goodbye, looking impossibly small against the vast expanse of swamp behind her. She'll be okay, Isabella said quietly. She better be. Because if anything happens to her because of this, it won't. We're going to end this. Tonight, we get me somewhere safe. Tomorrow, you take the flash drive to Agent Chen, and by this time next week, Victor Hale is going to be in federal custody. Eli hoped she was right, but hope was dangerous. Hope got people killed. He opened the throttle and pointed the skiff southeast toward Flamingo and Jack Brennan and whatever came next. The swamp swallowed them, and behind them, Luna's small figure disappeared into the gathering dark. The helicopter found them 20 minutes later. Eli heard it before he saw it, the distinctive whump, whump, whump of rotor blades cutting through humid air. He killed the motor instantly, letting momentum carry them toward a thick stand of mangroves. Isabella was already moving, grabbing the camouflage tarp from under the seat and pulling it over both of them. They huddled together in the bottom of the skiff as the helicopter roared overhead, so low that Eli could feel the downdraft rocking the boat. The searchlight swept across the water in methodical arcs, turning night into harsh white day wherever it touched. Eli held his breath, one hand on his rifle, the other holding Isabella still. Through a gap in the tarp, he watched the light pass within 20 feet of their position. The helicopter hovered for an eternity that was probably less than a minute. Then it moved on, continuing its search pattern south. They waited in silence until the sound faded completely. Only then did Eli pull back the tarp and risk sitting up.
Isabella's face was pale in the moonlight, her jaw set with determination that couldn't quite hide the fear underneath. "Thermal imaging," she said quietly. "They're using thermal. That's how they found us so fast." "Then we can't run. Not in open water." Eli's mind raced through tactical options, discarding most of them immediately. "We need to stick to heavy cover, move slow, keep the canopy between us and that bird. That'll take hours, maybe all night. Better than dead." He started the motor again, keeping it at barely above idle, and guided them into the mangrove maze. Here, the roots formed natural tunnels, passages so narrow that Eli had to duck to avoid low-hanging branches. The canopy overhead was thick enough to block most aerial surveillance, but it also meant they were moving at a crawl, and every sound echoed. Isabella sat rigid in the bow, watching for obstacles. Her fever had climbed again. Eli could see it in the way she moved, too careful, conserving energy. The IV bag was long since empty, and he had no way to replace it out here. She needed rest, proper medical care, not a midnight run through hostile territory. "Tell me about Jack Brennan," Isabella said suddenly. Keeping herself alert by talking, Eli guessed. "Why will he help?" "Jack and I served together. Different units, but we crossed paths in Afghanistan. He pulled me out of a bad situation once, ambush gone sideways, half my team dead or wounded, me with shrapnel in my leg trying to hold a position until extraction. Jack's team wasn't even supposed to be in that sector, but they heard the firefight and came running, saved my life." "And you've stayed in touch?" "Not really. Jack doesn't do in touch. But we have an understanding. He needs something, I show up. I need something, he shows up. No questions asked." Isabella was quiet for a moment. "How many people have you had to call on that understanding?" "Before tonight? 0. Eli navigated around a submerged log, the skiff's hull scraping softly. "I don't like owing people. Don't like being owed. But Jack's different. He gets it." "Gets what?" "That sometimes the system fails. That sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones you need protection from." Eli thought about Victor Hale, his expensive suit and dead eyes, threatening Luna without ever saying her name directly. Jack left the Navy because he couldn't stomach the politics anymore, couldn't watch good people get sacrificed for bad decisions made by men who'd never seen combat. So he walked away, built his own life out here where nobody could tell him what to do or who to trust. "Sounds lonely." "Says the woman who jumped out of a plane alone." Isabella laughed, a sound that was almost a sob. "Fair point." They fell back into silence, broken only by the soft purr of the motor and the endless chorus of frogs and insects. The Everglades at night was a living thing, breathing and pulsing with a rhythm older than human civilization. Eli had learned to find peace in it during his darkest times after Sarah left. Out here, his problems felt smaller, manageable, just another part of the ecosystem trying to survive. But tonight, peace was a luxury they couldn't afford. The helicopter made another pass around 8:30, this time farther east. Eli listened to it carefully, tracking the pattern. They were working a grid, systematic and thorough. Professional. Victor Hale had hired good people, ex-military probably, the kind who knew how to hunt humans in hostile terrain. "How many men do you think he has?" Isabella asked, following his train of thought. "At least 6. 2 for the helicopter crew, 4 on the ground. Maybe more if he's serious about finding you." "He's serious. I made him look foolish by surviving. Men like Victor can't tolerate that." Her voice went hard. "And there's 47 million reasons for him to make sure I never testify." "We should talk about that. About what happens when we get you to Jack's." "What do you mean?" Eli chose his words carefully. "You can't stay hidden forever. Eventually you'll have to surface. And when you do, you'll need protection, real protection, federal marshals, FBI, something. But getting that means trusting someone in the system, which means trusting that whoever you call isn't on Victor's payroll." "Agent Chen," Isabella said. "She's the only one I trust, I've known her for 3 years. She spoke at a conference I hosted on tech ethics. We stayed in touch. When I started finding the evidence, she was the one I reached out to. You sure she's clean? As sure as I can be about anyone. Isabella shifted in her seat, trying to find a position that didn't aggravate her injured shoulder. Sarah's career is built on taking down white-collar criminals. She's obsessive about it, completely incorruptible, which is why Victor wouldn't have approached her. But he might know you contacted her. Maybe, probably, which means when I surface, he'll know about it within hours. Isabella looked at him. That's why I need you to take the flash drive to her first, tomorrow, before I make contact. Get the evidence in her hands so that even if something happens to me, nothing's happening to you. Eli, no, I'm not having this conversation again. We're going to get you to Jack's, you're going to recover, and then we're both going to watch Victor Hale get arrested on live television. End of story. Isabella smiled despite herself. You're very stubborn. Marines don't give up. It's kind of our thing. At 9:47, they reached a junction where 2 channels merged. Eli paused, checking his mental map of the Everglades. Left would take them toward Flamingo, but through more open water. Right would keep them in heavy cover, but add another hour to their travel time. The decision was made for him when he heard boat engines. Multiple engines, running fast, coming from the left channel. Down, Eli hissed. They dropped flat in the skiff, pulling the tarp over themselves again. Through the fabric, Eli could hear the boats getting closer. 2 of them, maybe 3. Big outboards, the kind that cost serious money and moved serious weight. The boats roared past the junction without slowing, their wakes rocking the skiff violently. Eli caught a glimpse of searchlights mounted on the bows, armed men scanning the water, hunters looking for prey. Once they were gone, Eli sat up and made his decision. We're going right, slower, but safer. Agreed. They pushed deeper into the maze of channels, leaving the main waterways behind. Here, the water was shallower, the passages narrower. Twice they had to get out and push the skiff over mudflats. Isabella helped despite her fever, both of them working in silent coordination, aware that noise carried in the darkness and Victor's men were everywhere. By 11:15, they'd covered maybe 8 miles. 12 more to go. Eli's arms ached from holding the tiller steady through endless turns and obstacles. His back screamed from the tension of staying alert for hours. But he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Luna was counting on him to come home. Isabella was counting on him to get her somewhere safe. He wouldn't let them down. Around midnight, they entered a stretch of open water, maybe 200 yards across, unavoidable if they wanted to reach Jack's place. Eli studied the sky. No helicopter sounds. The boats had moved on to search other areas. It was as good a window as they were likely to get. Hold on, he said, and opened the throttle. The skiff leaped forward, motor screaming in the quiet night. They flew across the open water, Isabella gripping the gunwale, Eli steering with everything he had. Halfway across, he saw lights in the distance. A boat, running without navigation markers, moving fast to intercept. Company! He called over the engine noise. Isabella turned to look, her face grim. Can we outrun them? Depends on what they're driving. Eli pushed the motor as hard as it would go. His skiff was light and agile, built for navigating shallow water, not high-speed chases. But it was all they had. The other boat was gaining, definitely bigger, definitely faster. Eli could see 3 men in it now, 2 up front with rifles, 1 at the helm. They were cutting across to head him off, trying to force him toward the bank where the water got too shallow to maneuver. Eli did the math in his head. They wouldn't make it to cover before the other boat caught them, which left 2 options, surrender or fight. And surrendering to Victor Hale's hired guns wasn't really an option at all. Get down in the bottom, Eli ordered, and hold on to something. What are you doing? Something stupid. He waited until the other boat was 50 yards away, their searchlight finding his skiff, pinning them in harsh white light. The men raised their rifles. Someone shouted through a megaphone, "Cut your engine! This is a citizen's arrest!" Eli yanked the tiller hard left and goosed the throttle. The skiff spun in a tight arc, throwing up a wall of spray. For a second he was running directly at the other boat, playing chicken with men who had automatic weapons. They hesitated. That moment of hesitation was all Eli needed. He veered right at the last second, skimming past their bow so close that Isabella could have touched their hull. The other boat's pilot overcorrected, and suddenly they were wallowing sideways in the water, their momentum working against them. Eli didn't waste the advantage. He hit the throttle and raced for the tree line, the skiff bouncing across the wake, Isabella holding on for dear life. Behind them, the other boat was trying to turn around, but they'd lost their angle. Eli plunged into the mangroves just as the first shots cracked out behind them. Bullets whined through the air, smacking into branches and water. One round punched through the skiff's side, right next to where Isabella was crouched, missing her by inches. "Stay down!" Eli shouted, though she was already as low as she could get. He navigated the mangrove tunnels at dangerous speeds, branches whipping past, roots appearing out of nowhere. Behind them, he could hear the other boat trying to follow but hitting obstacles, their heavier draft working against them. The shooting had stopped, hard to hit a target you couldn't see in thick vegetation. After 5 minutes of reckless flight, Eli finally slowed down. His hands were shaking. Adrenaline made everything feel sharp and immediate and too real. He'd been in firefights before, but that was combat. This was hunting. They were being hunted like animals, and the only difference between surviving and dying was luck and experience and the width of a mangrove tunnel. "You okay?" he called to Isabella. She raised her head slowly, checking herself for injuries. "I think so. You?" Still breathing, Eli examined the bullet hole in the skiff's side. It was above the waterline, not immediately dangerous, but it was a reminder of how close they'd come. "We need to move faster. They know our general direction now." "How much farther to Jack's place?" Eli checked his landmarks, calculating. 8 miles. Maybe 2 hours at safe speeds. "Then we don't run safe speeds." Isabella sat up, her face set with determination despite the fever still burning in her eyes. "We run fast. We take the risk, because in 2 hours they'll have time to set up roadblocks, water blocks, whatever, and we'll be trapped." She was right. Eli hated that she was right, but she was. "Okay, but if we do this, you need to hold on. It's going to be rough." "I've survived this long. I can survive rough." Eli found a wider channel and opened the throttle halfway. Not full speed. That was suicide in these conditions, but faster than was smart. The skiff planed out, riding on top of the water rather than plowing through it. Every bump jarred his spine. Every turn threatened to throw them into the mangroves. But they were making time, eating up the miles between them and sanctuary. At 1:30 a.m., the helicopter found them again. This time there was no cover nearby, just open water and scattered sawgrass islands. The searchlight pinned them instantly, turning the world into harsh shadows and blinding white. Eli heard the helicopter dropping lower, and suddenly there was a second light, this one red, a targeting laser dancing across the water. "They're going to shoot," Isabella said, her voice strangely calm. Eli's combat instincts took over. He started weaving, making the skiff an unpredictable target. Left, right, a zigzag pattern that made navigation impossible, but might keep them alive. The helicopter matched his movements, the pilot good enough to stay with him. Then Eli remembered the rifle. "Take the tiller," he shouted to Isabella. "Keep us moving." "What? I can't." "Yes, you can. Just steer away from the light. Go!" Isabella scrambled to the back of the boat, taking over the tiller with her good arm. Her movements were clumsy, unpracticed, but she managed to keep them moving. Eli grabbed his rifle, the Remington with the beanbag round swapped out for live ammunition. He'd loaded it for gators. Now he was going to use it on a helicopter. The targeting laser swept across his chest. Eli didn't think. He raised the rifle and fired. The shot boomed across the water. The helicopter's searchlight exploded in a shower of sparks and glass. Suddenly they were in darkness again, the helicopter pulling up and away, disoriented without its primary tool. "Go!" Eli yelled. "Full throttle!" Isabella pushed the motor to its limit. The skiff screamed forward, and Eli loaded another round, ready to fire again if the helicopter came back. But they were climbing higher, probably reassessing, and in those precious seconds, Eli and Isabella reached a dense mangrove section and disappeared into its cover. They kept running for another 20 minutes, both of them too jacked on adrenaline to speak. Finally, Eli spotted a landmark he recognized, a dead cypress with 3 branches forming a perfect trident shape. They were close.
Another mile, maybe less. There, he said, pointing. Isabella followed his finger to a dim light barely visible through the trees. Jack Brennan's place, still awake at this ungodly hour because Jack slept like Eli did, poorly and never deeply. They approached slowly, and Eli cut the motor while they were still 50 yards out. He cupped his hands and made a sound like a barred owl, a signal he and Jack had agreed on years ago, a way of saying friendly incoming, don't shoot. A moment later, the same call echoed back, permission granted. Eli guided them the last distance with just the paddle. Jack's place came into focus, a stilt cabin even more ramshackle than Eli's, surrounded by a collection of airboats in various states of repair, solar panels on the roof, a satellite dish, and on the porch, a figure holding what looked like an AR-15 in a very comfortable, very practiced grip. "Walker!" Jack Brennan called out. His voice was gravelly from too many cigarettes and too much shouting over boat engines. "When you said you might call in that favor, I pictured beer money, not whatever the hell this is." "Complicated situation," Eli called back. "Need somewhere to stash a friend for a few days, no questions asked." Jack studied them both for a long moment. He was in his 50s, built like a fire plug, with a gray beard that would have made any biker gang proud. His eyes, even from a distance, were sharp and calculating. Finally, he lowered the rifle. "Well, don't just float there. Get inside before whoever's hunting you catches up." They tied off and climbed onto Jack's dock. Isabella was swaying with exhaustion and fever. Eli caught her arm, steadying her. "She's hurt," Jack observed. "Medical?" "Gator bite, infected. She's had antibiotics, but she needs rest and monitoring." "Bring her in. I've got a spare room, medical supplies from my Navy days. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." Jack stepped aside, gesturing them through the door. "But Walker, just so we're clear, after tonight we're even. No more favors owed either way. This kind of heat, I don't need twice." "Understood. And Jack, thank you. Thank me by not getting killed on my property. Makes a mess." Inside, Jack's cabin was surprisingly organized, clean, efficient, everything in its place. He led them to a small bedroom with a narrow bed and a window overlooking the water. Isabella sank onto the mattress with a sigh of relief. "I'll get supplies," Jack said, already moving. "Walker, you look like death. There's coffee in the kitchen. Help yourself." Eli found the coffee, poured 2 cups, brought one back to Isabella. She accepted it with hands that trembled slightly. "We made it," she said, wonder in her voice. "We actually made it." "We made it," Eli agreed. He sat on the edge of the bed, his body finally allowing itself to feel the exhaustion. "Now you rest, recover. Tomorrow, I take the flash drive to Miami, to your FBI agent, Agent Chen. Federal building downtown, ask for the white-collar crime unit." Isabella pulled the flash drive from her pocket and held it out. "Everything's on here, every piece of evidence. Promise me you'll get it to her." "I promise." "And promise me," Isabella's voice broke, "promise me you'll keep Luna safe. No matter what happens to me, you make sure she gets her chance. Nothing's happening to you, but yes, I promise." Jack returned with his arms full of medical supplies. He chased Eli out of the room with a gruff, "Give her some privacy," and set about checking Isabella's wounds, changing her bandages, administering more antibiotics from his personal stockpile. Eli stood on Jack's porch, drinking terrible coffee, watching the swamp slowly lighten with the approach of dawn. Somewhere out there, Victor Hale's men were still searching. Somewhere out there, Luna was sleeping in their cabin, guarded by Mrs. Rodriguez and unaware of how close her father had come to not making it home. But they'd made it. Against impossible odds, they'd made it. Now came the hard part. Jack emerged from the bedroom an hour later, wiping his hands on a rag. "She's stable. Fever's still high, but the new antibiotics should knock it down. She needs 48 hours of rest minimum before she's going anywhere." "I don't have 48 hours. I need to get this evidence to the FBI today." "Then go. I'll watch her." Jack poured himself coffee, standing next to Eli at the railing. "But you need to understand something. The men hunting her, they're not going to stop. Not until she's dead or they are. So whatever you're planning, it better be permanent." "I'm counting on the FBI for permanent," Jack snorted. "The FBI? Jesus, Walker. You really think badges and bureaucracy are going to stop a man with enough money to crash a plane? They will if the evidence is solid enough, if it's public enough that he can't make it disappear. And if it's not? Eli thought about Luna, about her dreams of saving whales, about the future she deserved. Then I'll figure something else out, but I have to try the legal route first, for her. Jack followed his gaze to where the sun was painting the eastern sky pink and gold. The woman in there? Isabella? She worth all this trouble? It's not about her. It's about the kids who got robbed. The $47 million that was supposed to change lives. Noble. Stupid, but noble. Jack clapped him on the shoulder. Go. Take my truck. Keys are on the hook by the door. I'll keep her safe. Keep her hidden. But Walker, if this goes sideways, don't come back here. I meant what I said about being even. Fair enough. Eli went back inside to say goodbye to Isabella. She was lying in the bed looking small and fragile under Jack's navy blanket, but her eyes were clear when they found his. You're leaving. Have to. The faster I get this to Agent Chen, the faster this ends. Be careful. Victor has people everywhere. If he figures out where you're going, he won't. I'll be smart. Eli pulled the flash drive from his pocket, held it up. This is everything, right? Everything you need to put him away? Everything. Bank records, emails, board meeting recordings where they discuss the theft. It's ironclad. She paused. But Eli, you need to understand, when this goes public, when Victor gets arrested, there's going to be fallout. Media attention, investigations, people asking questions about where I've been and who helped me. Your name might come up. Let it. That's easy to say now, but when reporters are camped on your dock, when Luna's friends are talking about her dad on the news, then we'll deal with it, together. Eli surprised himself by taking her hand. You're not alone anymore, Isabella. You've got people now. Me, Jack, Luna, we've got your back. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't deserve that. Don't deserve any of you. Maybe not, but you're stuck with us anyway. He squeezed her hand once, then released it. Rest. Recover. And when I get back, we're going to watch Victor Hale's world burn. Poetic. I try. Eli left the room before he could talk himself out of going. Jack was waiting by the door with keys and a serious expression. There's a loaded Glock in the glove box, Jack said. Use it if you need to. And Walker, if you don't make it back, I'll make sure the girl knows what you did, that her father was a hero. Appreciate that, but I'm planning on telling her myself. The drive to Miami took 3 hours through increasingly heavy traffic. Eli had forgotten what civilization felt like. The noise, the crowds, the aggressive driving. He kept one eye on the rearview mirror, watching for tails, but saw nothing suspicious. Jack's truck was generic enough to blend in, and Eli had changed into clean clothes from Jack's closet. He looked like any other working-class guy running errands in the city. The federal building was downtown, a glass and steel monolith that screamed government efficiency. Eli parked 2 blocks away, tucked the flash drive in his pocket, and walked the rest of the distance. His Marine training made him hyper-aware of his surroundings, exit points, cover positions, people who looked wrong. But again, nothing. Either Victor didn't know where he was, or this was a trap so perfect Eli couldn't see it yet. Security at the building was tight, metal detectors, X-ray machines, guards who took their jobs seriously. Eli surrendered Jack's Glock at the checkpoint. He'd expected that, and waited while they verified his identity and purpose. I need to speak with Agent Sarah Chen, Eli told the guard. White-collar crime unit. It's urgent. Do you have an appointment? No, but tell her it's about Isabella Reyes. She'll want to see me. The guard made a call. There was a long pause, some back and forth that Eli couldn't hear. Finally, 4th floor. Someone will meet you at the elevator. The someone turned out to be a young agent in a crisp suit who introduced herself as Agent Martinez. She led Eli through a maze of corridors to a small conference room with a window overlooking the city. Wait here. Agent Chen will be with you shortly. Eli sat. The chair was uncomfortable. The room was too cold. And his leg wouldn't stop bouncing with nervous energy because everything depended on the next few minutes. If Agent Chen believed him, if she acted quickly, if the evidence was enough, then maybe this nightmare ended today. The door opened. A woman in her 40s entered, Asian American, with sharp eyes and an expression that said she didn't suffer fools. She carried herself like someone who'd spent years building cases against people who thought they were untouchable. "I'm Special Agent Sarah Chen," she said without preamble. "You mentioned Isabella Reyes. I'm listening." Eli pulled the flash drive from his pocket and set it on the table. "Everything you need to arrest Victor Hale and his co-conspirators. Bank records showing the embezzlement of $47 million from EduTech Global's scholarship fund. Emails, recorded conversations. Isabella compiled it all before they tried to kill her." Agent Chen's expression didn't change. "Before who tried to kill her?" "Victor Hale. He sabotaged her plane. She survived. I found her. She's been in hiding ever since." "Where's Miss Reyes now?" "Safe. And she'll stay that way until Hale is in custody." Agent Chen picked up the flash drive, turning it over in her fingers. "Mr. Walker, I'm going to be frank with you. 3 days ago, Isabella Reyes's plane went down over the Everglades. The official position is that she's presumed dead. If she's alive and you've been hiding her, you've committed multiple crimes. Obstruction of justice, interfering with a federal investigation. There was no investigation. You declared her dead and moved on. We declared her missing. There's a difference." Agent Chen sat down across from him. "But let's say I believe you. Let's say Isabella is alive and this flash drive contains evidence of a crime. Why should I trust that it's authentic? In this age, anyone can fabricate digital evidence." Eli had expected this. "Then verify it. Isabella gave me her passwords, her access codes. Everything on that drive came from EduTech Global's own servers. It'll match your forensic analysis." "That could take weeks." "Then start now, because every day you wait, Victor Hale gets closer to finding Isabella and finishing what he started." Agent Chen studied him for a long moment. "You care about her, Miss Reyes?" "I care about the kids who got robbed. And yeah, I care about her too. She's trying to do the right thing. That should count for something." "It does." Agent Chen stood. "I'm going to look at this. If it's what you say it is, we'll move fast. But Mr. Walker, you need to understand, taking down someone like Victor Hale isn't simple. He has lawyers, connections, resources. Even with solid evidence, this could take months to prosecute." "Isabella doesn't have months. She has days, maybe hours before Hale's people find her." "Then I suggest you keep her hidden." Agent Chen moved to the door, then paused. "One more thing. When this breaks, and it will break, if the evidence is genuine, Ms. Reyes will need to testify, publicly. Are you prepared for that? For what it will mean for you and your family?" Eli thought about Luna, about reporters and attention and everything he'd spent 7 years avoiding. "Yeah, I'm prepared." "Good. Go home. Wait for my call. And Mr. Walker, thank you. If this is real, if you've handed me 47 million reasons to arrest Victor Hale, you've done something remarkable." Eli left the federal building feeling lighter than he had in days. It wasn't over, wouldn't be over until Hale was in handcuffs, but they'd taken the first step. The evidence was in the right hands. The system was finally working. He made it halfway to Jack's truck before he noticed the black SUV parked across the street. The windows were tinted, the license plate conspicuously absent, and leaning against the hood, arms crossed, was the man in the expensive suit from Eli's porch. Victor Hale smiled when he saw Eli notice him. He pushed off from the SUV and crossed the street with the confidence of a man who owned everything he touched. "Mr. Walker," Victor said pleasantly, "I was hoping we'd run into each other again. We have so much to discuss, starting with where you've hidden my employee." Eli's hand went to his waistband, forgetting that he'd surrendered his weapon at security. He was unarmed in the middle of Miami, facing a man who'd already killed at least twice and wouldn't hesitate to make it 3 times. Victor saw the gesture and his smile widened. "No need for violence. I'm just here to make you an offer, a very generous offer, one that benefits everyone, especially that charming daughter of yours." And Eli felt his blood turn to ice, because Victor Hale had just said Luna's name, and nothing would ever be the same again. The world narrowed to a single point, Victor Hale's smile and the implied threat hanging in the Miami afternoon air like humidity. Eli's combat training screamed at him to act, to move, to eliminate the threat. But he was on a public street in broad daylight, unarmed, and Victor's SUV undoubtedly contained armed men waiting for exactly that kind of response. "You shouldn't have said her name,"
Eli said quietly, his voice carrying the kind of calm that came before violence. Victor's smile didn't waver. Luna, 8 years old, attends Everglades Elementary, takes the bus with Mrs. Rodriguez's daughter, loves dolphins and drawing, and dreams of becoming a marine biologist. He tilted his head. Should I go on, or have I made my point? Every muscle in Eli's body was coiled tight, ready to spring. If you touch my daughter, I won't have to. That's the beauty of this situation. Victor gestured to a nearby coffee shop. Walk with me. Let's discuss this like civilized men. Nah, I'm not going anywhere with you. Then we'll talk here, but I think you'll want privacy for what I'm about to offer. Victor's expression hardened just enough to show the steel beneath the pleasant veneer. 5 minutes, Mr. Walker. That's all I'm asking. 5 minutes to explain how this ends well for everyone, including Luna. Eli glanced back at the federal building. Agent Chen was inside with the flash drive, probably already starting her analysis. If he could stall Victor for even a few hours, give Chen time to build her case, to get arrest warrants, but that required keeping Victor talking, keeping him focused on Eli instead of on finding Isabella. 5 minutes, Eli agreed. But we stay in public. They walked to a small park 2 blocks away, a pathetic square of grass and benches surrounded by office buildings. Victor sat on a bench facing the street, positioning himself where he could see anyone approaching. Eli remained standing, keeping his options open. I'm going to be direct, Victor began. I know you gave something to Agent Chen, probably a flash drive or documents, something Isabella compiled during her paranoid breakdown. Here's what you need to understand. Whatever she told you, whatever evidence she thinks she has, it won't stand up in court. My lawyers will tear it apart. Questions about chain of custody, allegations of fabrication, character assassination of a woman who clearly had a mental health crisis and jumped from a plane. By the time we're done, Isabella Reyes will be remembered as a tragic figure who lost her mind, not a whistleblower. That's a nice story. Doesn't make it true. Truth is malleable, Mr. Walker. It's shaped by whoever has the best lawyers and the most money. And I have both. Victor leaned back, utterly relaxed. But I didn't come here to threaten you with legal proceedings. I came to make you an offer. $1 million transferred to any account you specify. In exchange, you tell me where Isabella is hiding, and you walk away from this entire situation. Eli laughed, a harsh sound without humor. You think I'm doing this for money? Everyone does everything for money. They just pretend otherwise to feel virtuous. Victor's eyes were calculating. But fine. Maybe you're different. Maybe you actually believe in justice and fairness and all those quaint concepts they teach in the military. So let's discuss what really matters, your daughter's future. Eli's hands clenched into fists. Luna deserves opportunities, Victor continued. The best schools, the best programs, the best chance to achieve her dreams. I can provide that. Full scholarship to any school she wants, from elementary through graduate school. Access to marine biology programs at Woods Hole Scripps, Monterey Bay Aquarium, internships with National Geographic, everything she's ever dreamed of, handed to her on a silver platter. All you have to do is walk away. You want me to sell out Isabella so you can buy my daughter's future with stolen money. Money that was supposed to go to kids just like her. Money that will go to your kids specifically. Isn't that better? A guaranteed outcome for Luna versus a vague possibility that maybe, someday, some other children might benefit if the legal system works perfectly? Victor leaned forward. I'm offering you certainty, Mr. Walker. In an uncertain world, that's priceless. Eli thought about Luna's face when she showed Isabella her dream board, the hope in her eyes when Isabella mentioned scholarships and programs and possibilities. Everything he wanted for her, everything he'd failed to provide, being offered by a man who'd killed to protect his secrets. No, Eli said. Victor blinked, genuinely surprised. No. I'm not raising my daughter to believe that success comes from stepping on other people, that her dreams matter more than someone else's, that corruption and theft are acceptable if you benefit personally. Eli took a step closer, and Victor's hand moved reflexively toward his jacket. Luna's going to earn her future, the right way, and she's going to do it in a world where men like you are in prison where they belong. For the first time, Victor's pleasant mask slipped. What showed beneath was cold and ugly.
You're making a mistake, a serious mistake. I gave you a chance to profit from this situation, to secure your daughter's future. You're choosing poverty and principle instead. How noble, how stupid. I've been called worse by better men. Then let me be clear about what happens next. Victor stood, adjusting his cuffs with deliberate care. I will find Isabella. It's only a matter of time. When I do, she'll disappear permanently. And you'll watch your daughter grow up knowing her father could have given her everything but chose righteousness instead. When she's 30 and still paying off student loans, when she's watching other people live the life she dreamed of, you'll remember this conversation. You'll remember that you had a choice. I'll remember that I chose to be someone my daughter could be proud of. Victor smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We'll see how long that pride lasts. Goodbye, Mr. Walker. I'd say it was a pleasure, but we both know better. He walked away, climbing into his SUV. The vehicle pulled out into traffic and disappeared, leaving Eli standing alone in the sad little park. Eli's phone buzzed, a text from Mrs. Rodriguez. Luna asking when you'll be home. Everything okay? He typed back, on my way. Everything's fine. Then he added, keep all doors locked. Don't let her outside until I get there. Mrs. Rodriguez's response was immediate. Is there a problem? Just being careful. Thanks for watching her. Eli practically ran back to Jack's truck. His mind was racing through scenarios, contingencies, worst-case outcomes. Victor knew about Luna, which meant he had people watching Eli's cabin, probably had for days, which meant Mrs. Rodriguez and Luna were sitting in a potential target zone. He called Jack as he drove, forcing himself to stay calm. It's me. How's our guest? Sleeping. Fever's down. She'll live. Jack's tone sharpened. What happened in Miami? I gave the evidence to the FBI. Then Victor Hale appeared and made threats. Specific threats? Against Luna. He knows where we live, her schedule, everything. Jack was quiet for a moment. You need to move her, tonight. Somewhere Hale can't find her. I know. I'm working on it. Eli merged onto the highway, pushing the truck as fast as he dared. Can Isabella travel? Shouldn't, but she could if necessary. Where are you thinking? There's a safe house program through the VA for veterans and their families in crisis situations. I never thought I'd need it, but he'd memorized the number years ago, just in case. Just in case his past caught up with him, or the nightmares got too bad, or something went wrong. I'm going to call them. Get Luna somewhere Victor can't reach. Good. And Walker, Isabella needs to surface soon. Make a public statement, get federal protection. Hiding only works until it doesn't. I know. I'll talk to her when I get there. The drive back to the Everglades felt endless. Every mile was another minute Luna was exposed. Another minute Victor's people could be moving into position. Eli kept checking his mirrors, watching for tails, seeing threats in every vehicle that stayed behind him too long. He reached Jack's place just after 6 p.m. The sun was setting, painting the swamp in shades of orange and gold that would have been beautiful if Eli had any capacity left to appreciate beauty. He found Isabella awake, sitting up in bed, looking stronger than she had that morning. You're back, she said, relief evident in her voice. Did Agent Chen? She has the evidence. She's analyzing it now. Eli sat on the edge of the bed, exhaustion finally catching up with him. But Victor knows I went to the FBI. He was waiting for me, made threats against Luna. Isabella's face went pale. Oh God, Eli, I'm so sorry. I never meant, I know, but we're past sorry now. We need to act. He pulled out his phone. I'm putting Luna in protective custody tonight. There's a VA program that can keep her safe while this plays out, but you need to go public, soon. The longer you stay hidden, the more time Victor has to control the narrative to make you look unstable. I can't go public yet. I'm still too weak, and without the evidence in my hands. Agent Chen has the evidence. She'll verify it, maybe within hours. When she does, she'll issue warrants. But Victor will fight every step of the way. What we need is public pressure, media coverage. A living, breathing Isabella Reyes telling the world what happened. Isabella wrapped her arms around herself. You're asking me to make myself a target. You're already a target. I'm asking you to make yourself a witness, one that Victor can't disappear without making everything worse for himself. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, tomorrow. I'll call a press conference, tell my story, but Eli, promise me Luna will be safe. Whatever happens to me, promise me she's protected. I promise. And you're going to be fine. We all are. This ends tomorrow. Jack drove them back to Eli's cabin under cover of darkness. Isabella wore a baseball cap and sunglasses despite the late hour, hunched in the back seat of Jack's truck. They approached from the north using access roads that barely qualified as roads, Jack's knowledge of the Everglades as deep as Eli's. Mrs. Rodriguez's car was still in the yard. Lights were on inside the cabin. Everything looked normal, but Eli's instincts were screaming that something was wrong. He approached carefully, Jack covering him with the AR-15, Isabella staying in the truck. Eli climbed the porch steps silently, listening. Inside he could hear the TV playing, some cartoon with high-pitched voices and explosions, Luna's laughter. Mrs. Rodriguez saying something in Spanish. Eli opened the door. Luna looked up from the couch, her face breaking into a huge smile. "Daddy, you're home!" She ran to him, and Eli caught her up in a hug that was probably too tight, too desperate, but he couldn't help it. She was safe. She was here. Nothing had happened. "Hey, baby girl, miss me?" "So much. Mrs. Rodriguez makes terrible grilled cheese, not like yours." "Hey," Mrs. Rodriguez protested from the kitchen, but she was smiling. "Your father spoils you." Eli set Luna down and gestured for Mrs. Rodriguez to come to the porch. Outside, where Luna couldn't hear, he said quietly, "I need you to take her tonight. To your sister's place in Naples. Pack a bag, tell her it's a surprise trip, but get her out of here. Please." Mrs. Rodriguez's smile faded. "Eli, what's going on?" "I can't explain, but Luna's not safe here. Not tonight." "Does this have to do with the woman? The one everyone's looking for?" Eli didn't answer, which was answer enough. Mrs. Rodriguez looked past him to where Jack and Isabella waited in the truck. Her expression hardened with understanding. "Okay, I'll take her, but Eli, you fix this. Whatever trouble you're in, you fix it. That little girl needs her father." "I will, I promise." They went back inside. Eli helped Luna pack a bag, spinning a story about a special trip with Mrs. Rodriguez to see the beach and visit her cousins. Luna was suspicious. She was too smart not to be, but the promise of the ocean and a break from school routine won her over. "Will you come visit?" Luna asked as Eli walked her to Mrs. Rodriguez's car. "Soon as I can. And Luna, I need you to be brave for me. Can you do that?" Luna nodded seriously. "Marines are brave. I'm a Marine's daughter, so I'm brave too." "That's right." Eli kissed her forehead, breathing in the smell of her shampoo, memorizing this moment. "I love you, baby girl, more than anything in the world." "Love you too, Daddy." He watched Mrs. Rodriguez's taillights disappear into the darkness, then turned to find Isabella standing on the porch. Jack had gone inside to give them privacy. "She's beautiful," Isabella said quietly. "You've done an amazing job with her." "I've done my best. Sometimes it doesn't feel like enough." "It is, believe me. She's smart and kind and brave. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because she has a father who loves her and shows her every day what integrity looks like." Eli leaned against the porch railing, feeling the weight of the last few days settling on his shoulders. "I need to ask you something. When this is over, when Victor's in prison and you're back to running your company, what happens to kids like Luna?" "Really?" Isabella moved to stand beside him, looking out at the swamp. "I rebuild. I take EduTech back to its original mission. Every dollar that was stolen gets returned to the scholarship fund, plus interest. And I create a new program, the Luna Walker Scholarship, full ride for students from rural, low-income communities who want to study environmental science or marine biology, in perpetuity." Eli turned to look at her. "You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do. Because your daughter reminded me why any of this matters. Because she deserves her shot, and so do 1,000 other kids just like her." Isabella met his eyes. "And because you saved my life, Eli, multiple times. I can never repay that, but I can make sure it meant something." "It already means something. It means $47 million goes where it was supposed to. That's enough."
Not for me, it isn't. They stood in silence for a moment, two people who'd been strangers 5 days ago and now were bound together by violence and survival and something neither wanted to name. Finally, Eli cleared his throat. We should get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be intense. Eli, Isabella hesitated. Thank you for everything. I know I keep saying it, but I mean it. You didn't have to help me. You had every reason not to, but you did anyway. That's rare. You're rare. Or just stubborn. Maybe both. She smiled, and for the first time since he'd pulled her from the swamp, it reached her eyes. Good night, Eli. Good night, Isabella. The next morning broke clear and bright. Eli woke to his phone buzzing with a call from Agent Chen. Mr. Walker, we've analyzed the flash drive. Everything checks out. Bank records are authentic, emails are verified, the evidence is solid. We're moving forward with arrest warrants for Victor Hale and 3 EduTech board members. But I need Isabella. I need her testimony to make this airtight. She's ready. When and where? Federal Building, 2 p.m. Bring her in through the garage, level B2. We'll have agents waiting. And Mr. Walker, this goes public today. As soon as the warrants are executed, you should prepare for media attention. Already prepared. After the call ended, Eli found Isabella and Jack in the kitchen. Jack had made coffee and was listening to Isabella lay out her plan for the press conference. I'll contact 3 journalists I trust, she was saying, people who can't be bought by Victor. They'll break the story simultaneously, print, broadcast, online. By the time Victor realizes what's happening, it'll be too late to contain. And you'll be in FBI custody, Eli added, protected, safe. Isabella nodded. It's risky. Victor will fight back hard. But you're right. This is the only way. They spent the morning coordinating. Isabella made calls from a burner phone Jack provided, reaching out to contacts in media and politics, building her support network. Eli cleaned his weapons and checked escape routes, old habits from Afghanistan that served him well in the Everglades. Jack mostly stayed quiet, but his presence was reassuring, a reminder that they weren't completely alone in this. At noon, they loaded into Jack's truck again. The drive to Miami felt different this time, purposeful, final. This was the endgame, one way or another. They reached the federal building at 1:45. Eli navigated to the parking garage's lower level as instructed and found Agent Chen waiting with 4 other agents, all armed, all professional. Ms. Reyes, Agent Chen said as Isabella climbed out, welcome back from the dead. Trust me, it wasn't by choice. Isabella shook her hand. Thank you for believing Mr. Walker, for acting quickly. Thank the evidence. It's damning, Agent Chen gestured to her team. We've got secure rooms upstairs for your deposition, and at 5 p.m., after the arrests are made, we've arranged for a press conference. You'll make a statement. We'll take questions. By tonight, Victor Hale's face will be on every news channel in the country. Isabella glanced at Eli. Will you be there? At the press conference? If you want me to be, I do. You're part of this story, the man who found me, who protected me, who made all of this possible. She took his hand and squeezed once. Partners to the end? Partners to the end. The next 3 hours were a blur of legal proceedings that Eli wasn't part of. He waited in a conference room, drinking bad coffee, watching the clock. Jack had gone back to the Everglades. He wanted no part of what came next. Eli didn't blame him. At 4:47, Agent Chen appeared at the door. It's done. Hale was arrested at his office 20 minutes ago. His lawyers are already screaming about false charges and conspiracy, but we've got him in custody. The other board members are being processed now. Eli felt something unclench in his chest. It's over. Almost. We still need to get through the press conference without incident. Hale's people might try something desperate. But nothing happened. At 5 p.m., Isabella walked into a room full of cameras and journalists, with Agent Chen on one side and Eli on the other. She looked small but determined, wearing borrowed clothes from a female agent, her injured shoulder obvious even through the blazer. And she told her story. She told them about discovering the embezzlement, about the threats, about the sabotaged plane and the jump into the Everglades. She told them about Eli finding her, about Victor's attempts to silence her permanently, about the evidence that would prove everything, She spoke clearly and calmly, without anger or histrionics, just facts laid out in devastating sequence. When she finished, the room erupted in questions. Isabella answered what she could, referred legal questions to Agent Chen, and when someone asked about the man standing beside her, she smiled. "This is Elijah Walker. He saved my life. Multiple times. Without him, I wouldn't be here, and none of this would be possible. He's a veteran, a father, and the kind of person who does the right thing even when it's dangerous. If there's a hero in this story, it's him." Eli wanted to disappear. Cameras were pointed at him, people were shouting questions, and he'd never felt more exposed in his life. But Isabella's hand found his, and she held on tight, anchoring him. "Mr. Walker," one journalist called out, "what made you decide to help Ms. Reyes?" Eli thought about Luna, about the scholarship money that had been stolen, about 47 million reasons to fight back against corruption. "My daughter deserves a fair shot," he said simply. "So does every other kid out there. That's worth fighting for." The press conference ended. Federal agents escorted them out through a back entrance, avoiding the media circus. Isabella was going into protective custody until the trial. Procedure, Agent Chen explained. She'd be safe, comfortable, but unavailable. In the parking garage, Isabella turned to Eli one last time. "This is it, I guess. The part where I disappear back into my world, and you go back to yours. For now. But I'm holding you to that promise, about coming back, about the scholarship. I never break my promises." Isabella pulled him into a hug, carefully avoiding her injured shoulder. "Thank you, Eli Walker, for everything, for believing in something better. You too. Now go be a billionaire whistleblower. Change the world." "I'm gonna try." Agents led her away. Eli watched until she disappeared into an elevator, then climbed into Jack's truck, which Jack had let him borrow for another day, and started the long drive home. His phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Rodriguez. "We're seeing you on TV. Luna is so proud. When can we come home?" Eli smiled. "Tomorrow. Everything's safe now. Love you both." The Everglades looked different when he reached them that night. Still wild, still dangerous, still beautiful, but now they felt like home in a way they hadn't before. He'd fought for this place, for his daughter's future in it, for the right of kids everywhere to dream without corruption stealing their chances. Luna came home the next afternoon, bursting with questions about Isabella and the FBI, and why her daddy was famous now. Eli answered what he could, deflected what he couldn't, and mostly just held her close. The media attention was intense for about a week. Reporters calling, camera crews showing up at the cabin, offers for interviews and book deals that Eli turned down flat. But eventually, the story moved on. Victor Hale went to trial 3 months later, and the evidence from Isabella's flash drive buried him. $47 million recovered, 4 people sent to prison, EduTech Global's scholarship program rebuilt from the ground up. And on a warm day in November, 6 months after Eli had pulled a bleeding woman from a swamp, Isabella Reyes showed up at his dock in a rental boat. Luna saw her first, screaming with joy and running down from the cabin. Isabella caught her in a hug that was tighter and longer than any business executive should give to an 8-year-old kid she'd known for a few days. But they weren't strangers anymore. They were family. The kind you chose, rather than the kind you were born with. "I told you I'd come back," Isabella said, smiling through tears. "You kept your promise," Luna replied, "just like Daddy said you would." They spent the afternoon together, all 3 of them, plus Mrs. Rodriguez, who'd become a fixture in their lives. Isabella brought paperwork about the Luna Walker scholarship, explaining to a wide-eyed 8-year-old that she'd have her college education fully funded, plus summer programs and internships and opportunities that most kids only dreamed about. "But I have to earn it, right?" Luna asked seriously. "You're not just giving it to me?" "You'll earn it," Isabella assured her, "by working hard, by being kind, by becoming the marine biologist you're meant to be. That's the only requirement." After Luna went to bed that night, Eli and Isabella sat on the porch, watching the swamp settle into darkness. The easy silence between them spoke of shared trauma survived, of battles fought together, of understanding that didn't require words. "You could stay," Eli said quietly. "Not forever. Just when you need to remember why any of it matters.
You could come back here. Isabella looked at him, and something in her expression made his heart beat faster. I'd like that. This place, you and Luna, you helped me remember who I wanted to be. Before the company got big, before the corruption, before everything went wrong. I don't want to lose that again. Then don't come back, as often as you need to. Deal. She held out her hand and Eli shook it, the gesture both formal and intimate. Partners, friends. Maybe someday, something more. But for now, this was enough. Isabella left the next morning, but she kept her word. She came back once a month, then twice, bringing stories about EduTech's turnaround and the kids whose lives were changing because of recovered scholarship funds. She and Luna developed a mentorship relationship that transcended geography, video calls, and care packages, and shared excitement about marine biology discoveries. And slowly, carefully, Eli found himself opening up to the possibility that his story wasn't over, that maybe, after years of just surviving, he could start living again. With Luna, with the swamp, with a woman who'd crashed into his life and reminded him that some things were worth fighting for. 2 years later, on the day Luna received her acceptance letter to a prestigious marine biology summer program, Eli stood on his porch watching the sunset paint the Everglades in impossible colors. His daughter was inside, video calling Isabella to share the news, her excited chatter floating through the screens. He thought about that morning he'd found Isabella in the swamp, half dead and desperate. How he'd almost left her there, almost decided that her problems weren't his responsibility. How different everything would be if he'd made that choice. But he'd pulled her out, brought her home. And in saving her, he'd somehow saved himself too. Given his daughter a future beyond their small cabin. Proven that one person choosing to do the right thing could actually matter. Marines didn't give up. They fought for what was right, protected those who couldn't protect themselves, and never left anyone behind. He'd learned that in the Corps, but it had taken a billionaire in a ruined silk blouse to remind him that those principles applied to civilian life too. "Daddy," Luna called from inside. "Miss Isabella says she's coming down next weekend. Can we show her the new egret nesting site?" "Of course, baby girl. Whatever you want." Eli smiled, turned away from the sunset, and walked back into his home, where his daughter dreamed of saving whales, where a woman who'd lost everything had found herself again, where a single dad had learned that sometimes the people you save end up saving you right back. The swamp had taken so much from him over the years. His marriage, his peace, his certainty about the world. But it had also given him something irreplaceable. A family built not on blood or obligation, but on choice and sacrifice and stubborn refusal to let the bad guys win. And really, that was all anyone needed. A daughter to protect, a cause to fight for, and the knowledge that when you pulled someone from the darkness, you pulled yourself out too. The end came not with headlines or fanfare, but with an ordinary evening in an extraordinary place, where dreams took flight from the most unlikely foundations, and where a single dad and a lost CEO had both found their way home.